Beneath the waves lies a world older than memory, darker than night, and deeper than human understanding. A realm where sunlight fades into blackness, and silence reigns supreme. We've sent probes to the edge of the solar system, yet vast stretches of our own oceans remain untouched, unseen, unknown. What hides there? What pulses in the depths, just beyond the reach of our machines? Across the ocean floor, ancient structures defy explanation. Lights flicker in the abyss with no known source. Gigantic shadows glide past submersibles, vanishing before a single frame can be captured. And sometimes, the sea sings, emitting sounds no creature should be able to make, echoing through the water like whispers from another world. Are these the last remnants of forgotten civilizations? Natural phenomena we have yet to name? Or something else entirely, something that was never meant to be found? Tonight, we descend into those unanswered questions, into the cold, crushing mystery that is Earth's final frontier. So sit back, relax, and let's dive into the depths, where science meets silence, and the ocean refuses to give up its secrets. In the remote heart of Siberia, cradled by jagged mountain ridges and dense pine forests, lies a body of water unlike any other on Earth. Lake Baikal, a name that sounds like a whisper carried on cold wind, stretches vast and still beneath the Russian sky. It is the oldest lake in the world, formed some 25 million years ago. It is also the deepest, plunging more than 5,300 feet into the Earth's crust. But beyond its impressive statistics and haunting beauty, Baikal holds secrets that continue to unsettle those who dare to explore its depths. Even in summer, the lake's waters remain piercingly cold, and in winter, its frozen surface groans with the eerie resonance of expanding ice. Locals speak of its moods, of storms that rise without warning and lights that dance beneath its surface at night. Scientists have long studied Baikal's unique ecosystem, a reservoir of ancient species found nowhere else on Earth. But among the countless data points, there is a story that resists classification. It is not a tale of biology nor of geology, but of something far more enigmatic. The year was 1982. In the depths of the Cold War, a team of Soviet military divers was conducting routine training exercises in the frigid waters of Lake Baikal. These men were elite, highly trained, accustomed to extreme conditions. They were preparing for potential underwater operations, but what they encountered beneath the surface was unlike anything found in their manuals. At a depth of approximately 50 meters, the divers reported seeing figures, large, humanoid beings, swimming in formation. They were described as standing around 9 feet tall, clad not in traditional diving suits but in smooth, silvery bodysuits. Most disturbing of all, they wore no visible breathing apparatus. And yet, they moved with ease and precision through the dense water, seemingly unaffected by the pressure or the cold. The encounter was brief, but it left a mark. Curious, or perhaps alarmed, the Soviet divers attempted to capture one of the beings using a net. The mission failed. A sudden force, described as a kind of violent underwater wave, repelled the team. In the chaos that followed, 3 of the divers died from rapid decompression after being forced to the surface too quickly. The others survived, shaken and silent. These accounts were not made public for decades. Only after the fall of the Soviet Union did fragments of the incident begin to emerge through declassified military reports and second-hand testimonies. Russian investigator and former officer Vladimir Azhazha was one of the first to bring the story into public view, citing it as one of the strangest unsolved cases in Russian military archives. Skeptics argue that the divers may have experienced nitrogen narcosis, also known as the rapture of the deep, a well-documented condition that can cause hallucinations and confusion at high underwater pressure. Others suggest the figures were simply misidentified local aquatic life, perhaps oversized sturgeons or curious seals seen through murky water and stressed minds. But those who have spent time near Lake Baikal, scientists, fishermen, and even tourists, know there is something unusual about this place. Strange lights have often been reported under the ice, sometimes darting across the lake bed like submerged stars. Entire fishing villages whisper of unusual silhouettes moving silently beneath boats in the early hours of the morning, and over the decades, reports have continued to surface. Accounts of encounters with large humanoid figures swimming below, always just beyond the reach of understanding. Could these beings be the remnants of a lost species, surviving in the lake's vast and unexplored depths? Or are they, as some speculate, visitors from elsewhere, drawn to Baikal by its depth, isolation, and energetic anomalies? A number of fringe researchers have pointed to unusual electromagnetic readings and unexplained sonar anomalies that occur during peak activity periods. Others look to local folklore, which for centuries has spoken of water spirits and lake guardians, myths, perhaps, that echo something more ancient and real. And then there is the geological curiosity of Baikal itself. A rift lake, it is growing wider each year, part of a tectonic divergence that may one day split the Asian continent. Is it possible that the same forces shaping the Earth's crust below are also concealing vast underwater caverns, entire realms we have yet to discover? Only a fraction of the lake bed has been thoroughly mapped. In many areas, it remains as mysterious as the surface of a distant moon. We are left, as so often with the deepest mysteries, not with answers, but with silence. The official records are sparse. The surviving witnesses, those who speak at all, offer only fragments. And Lake Baikal, ancient and unmoved, continues to hold its secrets beneath a mirror of ice and sky. What did the Soviet divers truly see that day? Was it an illusion born of pressure and fear, or a glimpse into a hidden world that defies everything we know? As we continue to explore the seas and stars, perhaps the most astonishing discovery still waits, just below the surface. And so we look toward Baikal's still waters, wondering, what else swims in the depths just beyond the edge of light? As we leave the icy waters of Siberia behind, the mystery does not fade. It simply changes shape. Thousands of miles away, beneath the sunlit shores of Southern California, lies another enigma, one that has stirred speculation among scientists, ufologists, and skeptics alike. Just off the coast of Malibu, near Point Doom, the Pacific Ocean stretches wide and glimmering. The surface here is serene. Waves roll gently against the rocks, surfers wait in calm anticipation, and beachgoers bask in the warmth of the California sun. But beneath this picturesque coastline, in waters far deeper and darker than they appear, something unusual rests on the ocean floor. In 2014, using publicly available satellite imagery from Google Earth's ocean mapping tools, researchers and curious observers noticed something strange beneath the waves. An immense, shelf-like structure located approximately 6 miles offshore. The coordinates, 34DG133.31, N115 45.64, W, led to a formation that seemed to defy simple geological explanation. Roughly 2,000 feet beneath the surface, the object, or structure, appears as a massive oval platform, over 2.5 miles wide, with a flat top and what some have interpreted as pillar-like supports beneath it. At first glance, it resembles an enormous underwater hangar, or perhaps an ancient ruin overtaken by the sea. Most puzzling of all is what looks like a dark, shadowed entrance or tunnel at its center, measuring hundreds of feet across. Is it a natural formation, a forgotten remnant of human engineering, or something else entirely? Geologists were quick to weigh in. Many pointed to the region's seismic activity and shifting tectonic plates. The coastal shelf here is dynamic and complex, shaped by millennia of underwater erosion, landslides, and sedimentary buildup. According to these experts, the so-called pillars could simply be optical illusions, shadows cast by overlapping layers of rock or the result of uneven seafloor mapping. The tunnel? Perhaps nothing more than a deep crevice or cave carved by underwater currents. Yet, others are not so convinced. The geometric precision of the structure, its sharp angles, flat surfaces, and apparent symmetry, has led some independent researchers to propose alternative theories. Among them, that the site could be a man-made installation, long since submerged by changing sea levels or tectonic shifts. A relic of a forgotten civilization, an ancient port or base eroded by time. More speculative voices suggest something more recent and more active. Unidentified submerged objects, or USOs, have long been a topic of fascination within the broader study of unexplained aerial phenomena. Unlike UFOs, which dominate the skies, USOs are said to operate beneath the surface, moving through water at impossible speeds, maneuvering with a level of precision that exceeds known technology, and vanishing without a trace. Reports of these craft date back decades, many of them clustering around specific regions, such as the Catalina Channel, precisely where the Malibu Formation is located. Some witnesses, including naval personnel and commercial pilots, have described luminous objects entering or exiting the ocean near this very point. Others have reported strange sonar readings, blips that move in defiance of current or tide. Could the Malibu structure be connected? A point of origin, perhaps? A hidden gateway beneath the sea? In 2020, renewed interest in military reports of unidentified aerial phenomena and the subsequent declassification of Pentagon footage reignited the debate. Though none of the official documentation specifically references the Malibu Formation, its proximity to U.S. military airspace, and its location within one of the busiest naval corridors in the Pacific, continues to fuel speculation. But here, as so often in these mysteries, hard evidence remains elusive. No deep-sea expedition has yet confirmed the structure's composition. No underwater drone has filmed it in high resolution. The site is challenging to access, expensive to survey, and easy to dismiss as a trick of light, shadow, and digital rendering. And yet, it persists. This silent formation beneath the waves, seen but not touched, analyzed but not understood. Perhaps it is nothing more than a geological curiosity, an underwater mesa sculpted by time. Or perhaps it is a threshold, a doorway into something we have not yet begun to comprehend. If we have only explored a fraction of our oceans, how many such structures, such anomalies, remain hidden just out of reach? What do we really know about the world beneath our feet, or the intelligence it might shelter? For now, the unidentified submerged object off Malibu remains just that, unidentified. A mystery frozen in stillness, resting beneath the currents, waiting for someone, or something, to unlock its secrets. And as the waves roll on above it, we are left to wonder, is this merely stone, or the surface of something far more profound lying patiently beneath the sea? As we leave the strange formation off the coast of Malibu behind, our attention drifts to warmer waters, where sunlight cuts through turquoise waves and coral reefs teem with life. The Caribbean Sea, bordered by the coasts of Central and South America, is a region rich with history, myth, and mystery. Pirates once sailed these waters. Ancient trade routes carved invisible paths between scattered islands. And beneath the waves, somewhere deep in the stillness, another riddle emerges. One not told in folklore or carved into stone, but glimpsed only through the cold lens of satellite data. It began, as many modern mysteries do, with the tools of technology. In 2009, Internet users exploring Google Earth's ocean mapping features stumbled upon a strange set of patterns on the seafloor, just off the western coast of Cuba, stretching deep into the Caribbean basin. What they found did not resemble natural formations, coral ridges, or tectonic faults. Instead, the shapes appeared geometric, strikingly so. Gridlines, rectangular patterns, long straight corridors that seemed to intersect at right angles. To the human eye, trained to recognize order in chaos, the shapes resembled a city, massive blocks of what looked like streets or walls, laid out in a formation eerily similar to urban planning. The dimensions of the area, some noted, were staggering, tens of miles in length and width, far larger than any known submerged ruin. But what were they? A glitch? A lost civilization? Or something we simply don't yet understand? The coordinates, around 19°25 Shirt N, 81°11 Suryu, lie near the Cayman Trench, one of the deepest points in the Caribbean. This region is part of a tectonic boundary zone, where the North American and Caribbean plates slowly grind past each other. Earthquakes, deep ocean trenches, and unusual geological activity are all part of the area's natural identity. Yet, these lines on the seafloor do not resemble the chaotic fractures caused by shifting plates. They are too straight, too uniform. Initial explanations from Google's own technical team suggested that the patterns were the result of sonar data stitching, a side effect of the way various sonar passes were compiled into one large oceanographic map. In essence, they said, the grid lines were a digital artifact, nothing more than the visible residue of a data collection process. But that explanation, while technically plausible, didn't quiet the curiosity. Why were these artifacts visible only in this location? Why such symmetry? And why do some of the grid-like formations appear at depths too great for traditional sonar mapping passes to have even occurred? The location only deepened the mystery. This stretch of the Caribbean, near Cuba and the Yucatán Peninsula, has long been a magnet for speculation. Some fringe theorists connect it to tales of Atlantis, noting that Plato's descriptions placed the lost city somewhere beyond the Pillars of Hercules, generally believed to refer to the Strait of Gibraltar, and into the vast Atlantic. While no serious archaeological evidence has ever confirmed the existence of Atlantis, the allure of a great civilization swallowed by the sea lingers. More grounded theories point to the lost architecture of the Americas. The Yucatán was once home to the great Maya civilization, whose advanced urban planning, astronomy, and engineering continue to inspire awe. Could there have been a coastal city, now drowned by rising sea levels or a sudden cataclysm that left its mark beneath the Caribbean? In 2001, separate from the Google Earth discovery, a team of researchers, led by Canadian engineer Paulina Zalitsky, announced they had detected unusual formations on the seafloor off the western coast of Cuba using side-scan sonar. Their descriptions, massive stone-like structures arranged in geometric patterns, bear a striking resemblance to what was later seen in the Google Earth images. Though a follow-up exploration was planned, political and logistical difficulties prevented a thorough investigation, and the site remains largely unexamined to this day. Could these two anomalies, Zalitsky's findings and the grid lines seen from space, be linked? Or are we simply layering one mystery atop another, each incomplete on its own? Skeptics argue that the appeal of a sunken city is emotional, not empirical. The ocean is vast, they remind us, and digital mapping tools are imperfect. Illusions are easy to believe when we're predisposed to find patterns in the deep. Yet even the skeptics must admit, we've mapped the surface of Mars with greater precision than much of our own ocean floor. So what lies at the bottom of the Caribbean? Lines of data? Or traces of something real, something ancient? As satellite imagery grows sharper and underwater, exploration becomes more sophisticated. Perhaps one day a submersible will descend upon that spot and bring back something more than shadows. But until then, the mystery holds. We peer down from digital heights, thousands of miles above, catching fleeting glimpses of something unnatural in the natural world. Are we looking at the ocean's memory, an echo of something that once was, or merely a trick of light, angle, and wishful thinking? And so the grid remains, quiet, unmoving, unanswered. What else might lie beneath the waves, hidden not by time but by the limits of our own perception? From the gridded anomalies of the Caribbean Sea, our journey drifts eastward, across the vast Pacific, toward waters less traveled, less understood. Here, off the southeastern coast of Japan, between the Iwo Islands and the Bonin Archipelago, lies a stretch of ocean both breathtaking and foreboding. It is known by many names. To some, it's the Dragon's Triangle. To others, the Devil's Sea. Its waters shimmer with the same indigo depth as the rest of the Pacific, its surface stirred gently by monsoon winds and island breezes. On calm days, the sea appears tranquil, almost indifferent. But beneath its surface, ancient tensions stir. This is a place long marked by disappearances, strange readings, and an unease that resists explanation. The Devil's Sea roughly mirrors the more infamous Bermuda Triangle on the opposite side of the world. Like its Atlantic counterpart, it has gained a reputation for swallowing ships and aircraft without a trace. While the precise borders of the triangle shift depending on the source, most agree it spans a region from Japan's east coast down toward the Mariana Trench and back up near the island of Guam, a triangle drawn across one of the most tectonically active zones on Earth. Japanese fishermen have spoken of this sea for generations. Long before the term Dragon's Triangle was coined in the West, local legends told of fiery whirlpools, phantom islands, and vessels vanishing into calm seas. In the 1950s, these whispers became something more. Between 1952 and 1954, the Japanese government launched a series of research missions into the area, hoping to understand the causes of numerous fishing vessel disappearances. 9 ships had vanished within 2 years. In response, Japan dispatched the Kaiyo Maru No. 5, a scientific survey ship equipped with researchers, equipment, and crew. It too disappeared, without warning, without distress signal, and without survivors. The loss of the Kaiyo Maru No. 5 was so profound that further government investigations were quietly halted. No wreckage was found. No answers offered. Only questions, deep as the waters themselves. Some point to seismic activity as the likely culprit. The region sits atop a volatile meeting of tectonic plates, and underwater volcanoes are not uncommon. Sudden eruptions, gas expulsions, or submarine landslides could explain the rapid disappearance of vessels. Ships caught in these events would have little chance to radio for help and might leave behind no floating debris. Others suggest magnetic anomalies. Pilots have reported strange compass behavior in this region, similar to reports from the Bermuda Triangle, where navigation becomes unreliable and instruments spin aimlessly. Could fluctuations in Earth's magnetic field be interfering with equipment, leading to disorientation and disaster? But not all accounts align neatly with natural explanations. Some reports describe ships disappearing under clear skies, calm seas, and full visibility. In a few cases, vessels have been found adrift, completely intact, engines idle, crew missing. One such story tells of a freighter discovered with meals still laid out on tables, machinery in perfect working order, but not a single soul aboard. Official records on these events are scarce or inconclusive, leaving a lingering sense of absence that data alone cannot resolve. Fringe theories multiply in this silence. Some believe the Devil's Sea is a vile vortex, one of 12 regions around the globe identified by Ivan Sanderson, where gravitational or electromagnetic anomalies distort space and time. Others go further still, proposing underwater bases, extraterrestrial interference, or remnants of lost civilizations like Mu, a hypothesized Pacific equivalent of Atlantis. And then there's the question of time itself. Some sailors have claimed to experience temporal distortions while crossing the region, losing hours with no memory of what occurred. These stories are difficult to verify, but they mirror similar claims from other mysterious oceanic regions. Are they symptoms of fatigue, fear, or something more unusual? Despite decades of satellite imaging, sonar surveys, and increased naval presence, the Devil's Sea continues to guard its secrets. It's a place where technology flickers, radio signals fade, and human presence feels curiously out of place. While maritime traffic now avoids the area less than in the past, the stories persist, passed down not through official channels, but through whispers, journals, and local legend. Could the answers lie in the sea's geology, a volatile soup of shifting crust and volcanic vents? Or does something older dwell here, something we're not equipped to perceive? One might dismiss the mystery entirely, if not for its consistency. Century after century, culture after culture, have pointed to this patch of ocean and said, something is not right here. And so we linger at the edge of the Dragon's Triangle, wondering not just what has been lost within, but why. Why does this region, so visually ordinary, produce such extraordinary silence? Is it merely ocean and myth, or is there something hidden in the deep, waiting to be discovered? Or perhaps waiting never to be found? From the turbulent waters of the Dragon's Triangle, where ships vanish into silence, we turn now toward a legend that has haunted the oceans for centuries, one that blurs the boundary between myth and marine biology. In the cold, dark corridors of the deep sea, far below the surface where sunlight fades into absolute black, something stirs, something vast, something ancient. Sailors once gave it a name whispered with awe and dread: the Kraken. The origins of the Kraken myth trace back to Nordic seafarers of the 12th century and earlier. According to old mariners' accounts, this creature was no ordinary sea monster. It was colossal, said to be capable of dragging entire ships and their crews into the abyss. With tentacles long enough to encircle a full-sized vessel, eyes the size of shields, and a hunger that turned the ocean red, the Kraken became one of the most enduring maritime legends of the northern world. The earliest references appear in Scandinavian texts, where the creature was described not just as a beast, but as a kind of living island. Sailors were warned not to anchor near what appeared to be a rocky mass, lest they awaken the creature slumbering beneath. In 1755, the Danish historian Erik Pontoppidan compiled these tales in his Natural History of Norway, lending the Kraken a strange credibility. Pontoppidan even claimed the beast was based on real sightings, describing it as a creature so vast that it is mistaken for land, and detailing how it could create dangerous whirlpools simply by submerging. For centuries, the Kraken remained relegated to the realm of legend, a monstrous exaggeration perhaps of something real, but smaller, less cinematic. Yet in the 19th and 20th centuries, deep-sea expeditions began to offer fragments of biological evidence that raised unsettling questions. In 1857, the Danish zoologist Japetus Steenstrup described and named the Architeuthis ducks, the giant squid, based on beached specimens and recovered body parts. Here, at last, was something tangible. The giant squid can grow up to 40 feet long, with tentacles lined with suction cups bearing sharp, chitinous rings. It has a parrot-like beak capable of slicing through flesh and bone, and eyes among the largest in the animal kingdom, reaching the size of dinner plates. For a time, it seemed the mystery had been solved. The Kraken, some concluded, was simply an exaggerated account of these elusive creatures. But not all the questions were answered. Despite its enormous size, the giant squid remains rarely seen alive in its natural habitat. For over a century, no footage existed of the animal in the wild, only corpses washing ashore or tangled in fishing lines, often mangled beyond recognition. In 2012, researchers finally captured video of a living giant squid deep in Japanese waters, confirming the animal's haunting beauty and alien elegance. But if this creature, so massive and strange, could evade human eyes for so long, what else might dwell even deeper? Further out in the abyss, where pressure is crushing and the cold is eternal, lies a realm even less explored. The domain of the colossal squid, Mesonicoteuthis hamiltoni. This relative of the giant squid lives in the freezing waters of the Southern Ocean and is believed to be even more massive and powerful. Specimens pulled from the depths have revealed terrifying adaptations, rotating hooks on its tentacles, a larger, more muscular mantle, and unknown behaviors. Still, no human has seen one alive in its natural environment, and the full-grown adult remains, in many ways, a mystery. Throughout the 20th century, modern naval logs and deep-sea fishing records continued to whisper of encounters, massive tentacles wrapped around hulls, unexplained disturbances beneath trawlers, strange scars on whales that suggest battles with unseen leviathans. In 2003, a group of marine biologists examining sperm whales off the coast of New Zealand noted deep circular wounds, likely from battles with massive squid. But the size and pattern of some marks hinted at a creature possibly even larger than Architeuthis dux. Are these encounters with outliers, rare, oversized specimens? Or are they signs of a species yet unclassified? Something that inspired the legends long before science caught up? Some researchers propose that tales of the Kraken were not fabrications, but inherited memory, a cultural echo of occasional real encounters with massive cephalopods. Others go further, suggesting that if creatures like giant or colossal squids evolved even slightly differently, perhaps growing larger, becoming more aggressive, or developing unexpected intelligence, the result could resemble something truly terrifying. But there are limits to what we can know. The deep sea remains one of the least explored regions on Earth. Over 80% of the ocean remains unmapped, unobserved, and unexplored. The abyssal plains and Hadal trenches, places where human instruments barely function, are still home to organisms we can only speculate about. Evolution, unchecked by sunlight or human interference, may have given rise to creatures unlike anything we've imagined. So we return to the stories, the ancient warnings etched in maps with dragons and curling tentacles, the journal entries of frightened sailors, the myths told beneath starlight on rocking ships. Were they exaggerations, misinterpretations, or veiled accounts of real encounters with beings from the black depths? The Kraken remains, if not as a known species, then as a symbol of what we still do not understand about the world below. What else moves through the darkness, hidden from view, glimpsed only in fear and memory? Perhaps, in the deepest places, myths are not born from imagination, but from something we were never meant to see. From the chilling legend of the Kraken to the unknowable life forms of the deep sea, we turn now to an inland mystery, one that doesn't require a vast ocean to unsettle. Thousands of miles from the open sea, surrounded by bustling cities and serene shorelines, lies a body of water that holds secrets of its own. Lake Michigan, one of North America's great inland seas. Wide, dark, and deceptively calm, its glassy surface belies the tales that swirl beneath. stretching across parts of Michigan, Wisconsin, and Illinois, a region of the lake roughly bounded by Loadington, Benton Harbor, and Manitowoc has gained a quiet, ominous reputation. Within this triangle-shaped zone, known to some as the Lake Michigan Triangle, reports of strange disappearances, aircraft crashes, vanishing ships, and bizarre sightings have persisted for over a century. At first glance, the lake appears peaceful. Its waters ripple gently beneath skies often filled with drifting clouds. But mariners and aviators alike have long known that Lake Michigan can change without warning. Storms rise swiftly. Fog rolls in, thick and disorienting. Compasses waver. And sometimes, people vanish. Without wreckage, without distress signals, without explanation. One of the most puzzling incidents occurred on June 23, 1950. Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 2501, a DC-4 carrying 58 passengers, was en route from New York to Seattle when it requested permission to descend over Lake Michigan due to turbulent weather. Minutes later, it vanished from radar. Despite extensive search efforts involving the Coast Guard, Navy, and civilian vessels, no full wreckage was ever found. Only small pieces of debris and a few fragments of human remains were recovered, scattered across the surface of the lake. To this day, Flight 2501 remains the largest aviation mystery in U.S. history never conclusively solved. Decades earlier, in 1891, the schooner Thomas Hume also vanished while sailing across the lake with a load of lumber. No storm was reported that day. The vessel simply disappeared, along with its entire crew. For over a century, the ship's fate remained unknown, until it was finally located at the bottom of the lake in 2006, remarkably intact. Yet even then, questions lingered. Why did it sink? Why no distress signal? And what happened aboard before it went under? And then there are the more unusual reports, stories of mysterious lights seen above the water, craft that hover silently in the sky before plunging into the lake, or glowing orbs beneath the surface. In 2007, a local man fishing near South Haven reported witnessing a pulsing blue light under the waves, which disappeared the moment he approached. Other residents near Muskegon and Ludington have claimed to see triangular lights in the sky, slow-moving, silent, and vanishing at impossible speeds. While these accounts remain anecdotal, they echo a pattern seen in other mysterious regions around the world: unexplained aerial phenomena, navigational anomalies, and sudden technological malfunctions. Some researchers have attempted to explain the Lake Michigan Triangle through natural means. The lake's geography and weather systems create unpredictable microclimates. Sudden squalls and downdrafts can wreak havoc on planes and boats. Magnetic fluctuations, possibly due to iron-rich deposits beneath the lake bed, might interfere with instruments, disorienting pilots and crew. Still, others turn to older, more speculative theories. Native American legends speak of spirits inhabiting the lake, guardians of the water who respond with anger when disrespected. Some point to the possibility of underwater fault lines or energy vortices, regions where gravitational or magnetic forces behave unusually. Similar concepts have been applied to the Bermuda Triangle and the Devil's Sea. Perhaps the most intriguing and controversial clue lies at the lake's bottom. In 2007, a team of underwater archaeologists conducting sonar surveys discovered a strange arrangement of stones located 40 feet below the surface near Grand Traverse Bay. Among them was what appeared to be a carving of a mastodon, an animal extinct for over 10,000 years. The site has been dubbed the Michigan Stonehenge, though experts remain divided on whether the formations are natural or human-made. If human hands did place the stones, they may predate recorded history in the region. Could this site be a remnant of a forgotten culture, drowned by rising waters after the last ice age? Or is it another piece in a much larger, more complex puzzle? Whatever the answer, the stone circle and mastodon carving add an eerie layer to an already enigmatic place. They remind us that human presence on this continent goes back further than we often remember, and that much of it remains undocumented, unexplored, or misunderstood. So we return again to the lake's surface, watching the wind scatter ripples across the water as if nothing at all lies beneath. And yet, beneath the quiet, the stories persist. How can modern aircraft vanish without a trace in a lake that has been mapped and monitored for decades? Why do witnesses report lights and disturbances that defy physics and logic? Are these simply coincidences? Or is there something about this triangle, this patch of fresh water, that holds properties we don't yet comprehend? In a world increasingly illuminated by data and science, the Lake Michigan Triangle remains a pocket of darkness, a question without an answer, hidden in plain sight. And so we continue to wonder, what secrets lie beneath the waves, waiting patiently in the silence? From the restless waters of Lake Michigan, where the modern meets the mysterious, we now descend into a realm that feels ancient, untouched by time, yet filled with echoes of a distant past. Here, in the tropical forests of Mexico's Yucatán Peninsula, sunlight filters through tangled vines and falls upon small pools of crystal-clear water. They are deceptively peaceful, natural wells known locally as cenotes, but beneath their still surfaces lies a labyrinthine world, one of the largest underwater cave systems on Earth. And within these hidden chambers, a secret has slept for millennia. The Yucatán is riddled with these cenotes, formed when the porous limestone bedrock collapsed to reveal the underground rivers below. To the ancient Maya, these were not just geological features, they were portals, sacred openings to Xibalba, the underworld, places where gods could be reached and where offerings could be made. Diving into these flooded caverns is like entering another world. The water is unnaturally clear, filtered by layers of stone. Stalactites hang like daggers from the cave ceilings, formed over thousands of years when these caverns were still dry. Visibility can stretch for tens of meters, revealing chambers vast and silent, where light plays tricks on the walls and time seems to stand still. And in the silence, there are bones. Over the past few decades, underwater archaeologists exploring the cenotes have discovered human remains, skeletons carefully placed, not scattered, lying in positions that suggest ritual rather than accident. Some are remarkably well preserved, their bones protected by the stillness and mineral content of the water. Others are accompanied by artifacts, ceramics, obsidian blades, and offerings of food or incense. Why were they placed here? And by whom? The prevailing explanation among archaeologists is that the cenotes served as ceremonial sites for the Maya. In times of drought or catastrophe, sacrifices, both animal and human, were made to appease the gods. The sacred city of Chichen Itza, just miles from some of these caves, is home to the famous sacred cenote, where Spanish accounts claim young victims were thrown to their deaths as offerings to the rain god, Chaak. Excavations there have yielded not only bones, but precious objects, gold, jade, and pottery, dropped into the water as gifts to the divine. But some of the discoveries in the deeper cave systems don't match the known Maya rituals. They are older, much older. In 2007, divers exploring the Hoyo Negro Cave, an enormous submerged chamber 150 feet beneath the jungle, stumbled upon a skull. Further investigation revealed the nearly complete skeleton of a teenage girl, later named Naya. She lived over 12,000 years ago, placing her firmly in the late Pleistocene era. Her remains are among the oldest ever found in the Americas. Naya was not placed as a ritual sacrifice, at least not in the way the Maya would have done thousands of years later. She likely fell to her death into a dry cave long before it was flooded by rising sea levels at the end of the Ice Age. But the question remains, why was she there? What drew prehistoric people into the depths of the earth, into these narrow, dangerous caves? Her presence suggests that the underground chambers were visited, or perhaps even revered, long before the Maya rose to prominence. Could early humans have also seen these places as sacred? Or were they simply exploring, hiding, burying their dead? The skeletons aren't the only mystery. In some caves, divers have discovered unusual arrangements of stones, altars or platforms deep beneath the surface. In others, the presence of burnt wood and charred bones indicates that fires were once lit in chambers now completely underwater. These were once dry places, occupied by people, then slowly swallowed by rising seas. And as explorers venture further into the labyrinth, more questions emerge. What knowledge was lost when these spaces flooded? How many chambers remain undiscovered? Some experts estimate that over 90% of the cave systems in the Yucatán remain unexplored. Too dangerous, too complex, or simply unknown. Fringe theories, as always, linger at the edge of the conversation. Some claim that the submerged caves conceal entire forgotten cultures, remnants of pre-Maya civilizations that left no written records. Others draw connections between the cenotes and ancient global flood myths, suggesting that the rising waters preserved more than just skeletons. They buried histories we've yet to uncover. But among archaeologists, one thing is clear. The caves of Yucatán are more than natural formations. They are living time capsules, each chamber a sealed page in the human story, one written not in ink, but in stone, water, and bone. As we gaze into the mirrored surface of a cenote, we are peering not just into a pool, but into a portal, down into a world where the air has long since vanished, where footsteps haven't echoed for thousands of years, and where the dead rest in sacred silence. Why did ancient peoples choose these places? What did they see in the darkness that made them return again and again, carrying their dead and their offerings? And what might still lie in the unmapped passages beyond the reach of light, waiting to be found? From the silent stone chambers beneath the Yucatán to the shadowy depths of unexplored passageways, our journey takes us once again to the open sea, a place where clouds gather without warning, where compasses falter, and where entire flights can vanish into the air. Off the southeastern coast of the United States, the waters glimmer deceptively calm. But beneath this blue expanse lies one of the most infamous regions of the modern world, the Bermuda Triangle. And it is here, on December 5th, 1945, that something extraordinary and terrifying unfolded. It began as a routine training mission. 5 TBM Avenger torpedo bombers, part of the U.S. Navy's Flight 19, departed from Naval Air Station Fort Lauderdale just after 2 p.m. The crew was composed of 14 men, experienced pilots and trainees alike, tasked with a simple triangular route that would take them east over the Atlantic, then north, and finally back west to base. The weather was mild. The aircraft were in good condition. There was no indication that anything would go wrong, but it did. Roughly an hour and a half into the mission, the flight's commanding officer, Lieutenant Charles C. Taylor, radioed in to report a strange issue. They were lost. The land below didn't look as expected. Their compasses weren't working properly. Navigation was becoming increasingly difficult. "Everything looks strange," one of the pilots said. "Even the ocean." Taylor's transmissions became more erratic as the minutes passed. Despite efforts from the control tower to guide them home, the planes continued flying, directionless, further out to sea. Then silence. They never returned. Not a single trace of Flight 19 was ever found. No wreckage, no life rafts, no oil slicks. Hours after the last communication, the Navy dispatched a search and rescue plane, a PBM Mariner with 13 crew members aboard. Within minutes of takeoff, it too vanished. Radio contact was lost, and it never returned. Some later suggested it exploded mid-air, but no definitive wreckage was ever confirmed. 27 men lost in a single afternoon. No survivors, no conclusive evidence, just a deepening mystery. The official Navy report at the time described the disappearance as cause unknown. Years later, the phrasing would be softened to navigation error, but the unease lingered. How could 5 aircraft, flying in formation, become so disoriented under such seemingly stable conditions? How could a rescue plane vanish in the same area without a trace? Some point to the strange geography and meteorology of the region. The Bermuda Triangle, roughly marked by points at Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico, is known for sudden weather shifts, strong ocean currents, and complex atmospheric layers. Could a sudden squall have brought the planes down? Could the compasses have malfunctioned due to magnetic anomalies, throwing the formation into confusion? It's possible, but it's also incomplete. What makes the Flight 19 case especially compelling is the series of consistent, odd details. Reports from Taylor and his men were not simply about disorientation. They described the ocean itself looking unfamiliar, the sky becoming strange as if they were no longer in familiar territory. These were not new recruits. Taylor had over 2,500 flying hours, and yet he doubted his own senses. Over the decades, theories have proliferated. Some suggest an electromagnetic disturbance, an atmospheric phenomenon like a geomagnetic storm or even a form of ball lightning could have interfered with the plane's instruments. Others argue that Taylor may have mistaken the Bahamas for the Florida Keys, leading the squadron east into open ocean rather than west toward safety. But even this doesn't fully explain the total disappearance of all aircraft involved, or the eerily similar loss of the rescue crew. More speculative ideas range from rogue waves to time warps. One popular fringe theory suggests the presence of an underwater anomaly, a portal or rift, capable of disrupting both technology and space-time itself. These claims, while dramatic, have never been verified. Yet they persist, fueled by the very absence of clear answers. Then there are the rumors, unofficial Navy testimonies, second-hand accounts from radio operators who recalled garbled messages, strange frequencies, or reports of lights in the sky. Nothing formally documented, nothing that could be used to draw conclusions, just fragments. And in the background of it all, the Atlantic Ocean remains impassive, vast, silent. As of today, more than 75 years later, the fate of Flight 19 remains unsolved. Countless expeditions have searched the seafloor between Florida and the Bahamas using sonar, deep-sea submersibles, and satellite mapping. Still, no wreckage has ever been definitively linked to the lost planes. How could so many aircraft disappear so completely in an age of radar, radio, and record-keeping? Is the mystery of Flight 19 simply a tragic convergence of human error and natural forces? Or is there something else at work in this corner of the sea, something we're still unable to measure? Perhaps what makes this case so haunting is not just the disappearance itself, but the echo it leaves behind. Unanswered questions, faint transmissions lost to time, and the final words of a pilot who looked down at the ocean and said, "It didn't look right." What lies beneath that water? What happened in those final unrecorded moments? And could it happen again? From the strange disappearances in the skies above the Atlantic, we now turn our attention to the cold, crushing silence beneath the waves. A silence that swallows even the most advanced machines built by human hands. In the deep sea, where pressure flattens steel and light has never reached, we find one of the U.S. Navy's most tragic and unsettling mysteries. A vessel built to hunt, to endure, and to outmatch all predecessors. A marvel of Cold War engineering. And yet, one morning in 1963, it simply vanished. The USS Thresher was not just any submarine. Commissioned in 1961, it was the lead ship of a new class of nuclear-powered fast-attack submarines. Sleek, formidable, and equipped with cutting-edge sonar and weapons systems. At 278 feet long and capable of diving deeper than any U.S. submarine before it, Thresher was a symbol of technological progress during a time of geopolitical tension and relentless innovation. On the morning of April 10, 1963, Thresher set out into the North Atlantic for deep dive testing. It was a routine procedure, part of a post-maintenance check following months of upgrades. On board were 129 people, officers, crewmen, and civilian technicians. Conditions were calm. The skies were clear. At approximately 7:47 a.m., while submerged nearly 200 miles east of Cape Cod, Thresher made its final communication. The message was brief, indicating minor trouble but not panic. Then, silence. Minutes later, sonar operators aboard the accompanying surface vessel, USS Skylark, detected a series of haunting metallic implosions echoing from the depths. The Thresher was gone. Search efforts began immediately. Days passed, then weeks. Slowly, grim discoveries began to surface. Small pieces of debris, cables, and twisted fragments resting on the seafloor nearly 8,400 feet below. Eventually, the wreckage was found, scattered in thousands of pieces, lying broken across 6 square miles of ocean floor. An investigation followed. The official cause? A failure in a brazed pipe joint within the engine room cooling system. As the submarine descended during the test, it likely experienced a leak. Electrical systems shorted out. The reactor shut down. With no propulsion, Thresher began a slow, helpless descent into waters far beyond its structural limit. At a certain depth, one only the ocean knows for sure, the pressure crushed the hull like a soda can. It was the deadliest submarine disaster in U.S. history. But while the Navy's explanation provided a technical narrative, it did not close the door on mystery. Several questions remained unresolved. Why was there no clearer distress call? Why did some elements of the communication suggest disorientation or confusion among the crew? And how did a vessel designed with multiple redundancies fail so completely? For decades, families of the crew and independent researchers have requested the full release of the investigation's findings. Only in recent years have some of those classified documents begun to surface, sparking renewed interest in the story, not just as a technical failure, but as something more complex and more unsettling. In the years following the loss of Thresher, a few naval analysts and former officers raised the possibility that something unusual occurred in those final moments, something not fully explained by engineering flaws alone. Some noted anomalies in sonar data, brief bursts of static or interference not consistent with known mechanical implosions. Others questioned the severity of the pipe failure theory, suggesting it alone may not have been enough to cause such a catastrophic cascade. As always, more speculative voices filled the vacuum. Some theories suggested the submarine may have encountered something unknown at depth, an uncharted geological feature, or worse, another object. These ideas often link the Thresher's disappearance to whispers of USOs, unidentified submerged objects, strange sonar readings, and craft moving through water at unnatural speeds, reported by naval personnel in various oceans across decades. Could Thresher have collided with something? Or was it simply a victim of the very environment it was designed to survive? Even stranger are the ideas that place the Thresher's loss within broader anomalies of the Atlantic seafloor. The region east of Cape Cod is riddled with steep drop-offs, abyssal plains, and little-known undersea geological formations. Some believe it is part of a larger pattern of disappearances, accidents, and signal distortions. A region of magnetic disturbance? A pressure zone with unusual acoustics? Or merely coincidence magnified by tragedy? What's often overlooked is the haunting truth about deep-sea exploration itself. We know so little. The Thresher vanished into a place we barely understand. A place where sound bends, instruments fail, and pressure turns steel to dust. When something goes wrong there, we rarely get a second chance to know why. In the years after the disaster, the U.S. Navy launched SubSafe, a rigorous program designed to ensure the structural integrity of all future submarines. Since its implementation, there has not been another loss of a submarine to structural failure. In that sense, Thresher's fate reshaped the future of naval safety. And yet, the mystery endures. What truly happened during those final minutes, deep beneath the Atlantic? Did a series of failures spiral beyond control? Or did something unexpected interfere with the ship's systems in a way we still don't fully comprehend? All we have now are fragments, metal pieces resting in cold darkness, thousands of feet below the surface. A name etched into memory, and a silence that echoes louder than any sound. And so we ask, what else waits in the deep, where machines fail, signals vanish, and even our most advanced vessels are swallowed without a trace? From the cold silence of the Atlantic and the unanswered questions surrounding the USS Thresher, we now shift our focus across continents to another tragedy, one more recent, yet just as shrouded in mystery. Deep beneath the waters of the Barents Sea off the northern coast of Russia lies the wreck of the Kursk, a submarine once hailed as a symbol of post-Soviet naval might, now remembered for one of the most devastating peacetime maritime disasters in modern history. August 12, 2000. The sea is calm, deceptively still. Overhead, gray Arctic clouds drift above the steel-gray waters. Below the surface, the Kursk, a massive Oscar II-class nuclear-powered submarine, is participating in a major Russian naval exercise. At over 500 feet long and displacing more than 18,000 tons submerged, the Kursk is not just a machine, it is a floating fortress. Armed with 24 cruise missiles, equipped with 2 nuclear reactors, and designed to withstand torpedo attacks, it is believed to be virtually unsinkable. And yet, something went catastrophically wrong. At approximately 11:28 a.m., seismic monitors in Norway detect a sharp, violent tremor, an underwater explosion in the Barents Sea. 2 minutes later, a second, far larger detonation follows. For several hours, the Russian Navy remains silent. Communications with the Kursk are lost. The submarine does not surface. Only days later does the world learn the truth. The Kursk has sunk, and all 118 men aboard are presumed dead. The official investigation later revealed that a leak in one of the Kursk's Type 65 torpedoes caused a chemical explosion in the forward compartment. This first blast, while serious, was not fatal to the entire crew. It disabled the front of the submarine, ignited fires, and caused a second, far more powerful explosion, likely detonating the rest of the torpedoes on board. The force tore through the vessel, sending it spiraling to the seafloor at a depth of around 350 feet. But it wasn't instantaneous. Evidence later showed that 23 crew members survived the initial explosions, retreating into the 9th compartment, located in the rear of the sub. There, in total darkness, and surrounded by twisted steel, they waited. Some wrote notes to loved ones. Others attempted to activate emergency systems. They waited for rescue. But none came. The Russian Navy delayed announcing the disaster for over 24 hours, and initial rescue efforts were plagued by outdated equipment, poor coordination, and political hesitation. International offers of assistance from the UK, Norway, and the United States were initially declined. By the time divers reached the Kursk 8 days later, it was too late. All aboard had perished. The official explanation, the torpedo malfunction, was supported by forensic evidence. But the Kursk catastrophe did not end with this conclusion. Instead, it opened a floodgate of questions, suspicions, and speculation that continue to linger decades later. Why was a torpedo with known instability still in use during a high-profile naval exercise? Why the delay in rescue? And why, in the moments following the first explosion, was no distress signal sent, despite multiple redundant systems designed to ensure communication in emergencies? More troubling still were the contradictions in the Russian government's statements. Early reports claimed the entire crew died instantly. Later, they acknowledged survivors. Video footage released months after the incident showed divers entering the vessel and retrieving notes from crew members who had clearly lived for hours, possibly days, after the blast. One note, written by Lieutenant Captain Dmitry Kolesnikov, ended with the haunting words, "All of the crew from Section 6, 7, and 8 have moved into Section 9. There are 23 people here. We've made the decision because none of us can escape." Could more lives have been saved if help had come sooner? In the wake of the disaster, alternative theories surfaced. Some claimed that the Kursk had collided with a foreign submarine, perhaps NATO, shadowing the Russian exercise. Others suggested a failed missile test or a secret weapons system malfunction. Still others speculated that the submarine was carrying a volatile payload unknown even to much of the crew. These ideas were never confirmed and remain firmly in the realm of conjecture. Yet the persistence of these theories speaks to something deeper, a collective sense that the full story has not been told. The Kursk was not just a vessel. It was a symbol, a statement of strength from a country recovering from economic collapse and political uncertainty. Admitting to internal failure, especially during a military demonstration, would have come at a cost far greater than hardware. In that context, the silence that followed the disaster was not just technical. It was political. In 2001, the Russian government raised the Kursk from the seabed in one of the most ambitious salvage operations ever attempted. The bodies of all but 3 crew members were recovered. The remains were returned to their families. But the questions, those stayed submerged. What truly happened in those final hours? Did the crew die waiting for a rescue that could have arrived? Or was something deeper at play, something not recorded in the official report? Even now, more than 2 decades later, the wreck of the Kursk lies dismantled, its secrets scattered across the pages of redacted documents and sealed investigations. And in the cold waters of the Barents Sea, where the submarine once rested in silence, echoes remain. What else lies beneath? Unseen, unspoken, and unresolved. From the silent wreckage of the Kursk, lying fractured in the Arctic deep, we now drift to warmer waters, tropical, clear, and deceptively calm. A turquoise expanse in the heart of the Pacific Ocean, where palm trees sway above coral reefs and the sun casts ribbons of light through the shallows. But beneath this paradise lies something far more haunting. Here, in the Federated States of Micronesia, is Truk Lagoon, known today as Chuk Lagoon, one of the most densely packed underwater graveyards on Earth. A place where history lies preserved beneath the waves, rusting in eternal silence. A place known as the Ghost Fleet. At first glance, there is little to hint at what rests below. The lagoon, encircled by a chain of volcanic islands and coral atolls, is stunningly beautiful, an idyllic setting for divers and travelers alike. But for those who descend into its depths, a different world emerges. Japanese destroyers, transport ships, submarines, and fighter planes lie scattered across the seafloor, frozen in time. Skeletons of war, some upright, others capsized, still holding on to the echoes of a battle lost long ago. The story of Truk Lagoon begins in the lead-up to World War II. The Japanese Empire, Recognizing the strategic value of the Caroline Islands, transformed Truk into its primary forward naval base in the South Pacific. By the early 1940s, it was known as the Gibraltar of the Pacific, a fortress of steel, concrete, and firepower. Dozens of warships, fuel depots, repair facilities, and airfields were stationed there, defended by heavy artillery and submarine pens carved into the jungle-covered rock. But in February 1944, the fortress fell. Operation Hailstone, a massive surprise assault by the United States Navy, rained destruction on Truk over the course of 2 relentless days. Carrier-based aircraft bombed and torpedoed every ship within reach. Planes were blown from runways, vessels split in two, and fires burned across the water's surface. When it ended, the lagoon had become a mass grave for over 50 ships, hundreds of aircraft, and thousands of men. Some sank instantly. Others drifted aflame before slipping beneath the surface. Today, the wrecks remain, not as war memorials above ground, but as monuments to the depths. And yet, time has not erased the mystery. Divers exploring the lagoon often report strange sensations: sudden cold pockets in warm water, malfunctioning cameras, or a feeling of being watched in the silence. Others speak of eerie stillness or sounds that have no clear origin, metal groaning, footsteps where there should be none. Some see shadows moving through the interiors of wrecked ships, only to vanish when approached. These accounts may seem like diver folklore, but they are surprisingly consistent. And in a place where human remains still lie entombed in shattered hulls, bones cradled in rusted helmets, skeletal hands resting near forgotten rifles, it's not hard to understand why the lagoon is said to be haunted. Are these simply tricks of light, shifts in temperature, and the psychological weight of knowing you are swimming through the graves of thousands? Or is there something else within the lagoon, something more elusive? There are anomalies here that resist easy explanation. In some wrecks, navigational instruments remain magnetized, as if still responding to unseen forces. Deep-sea sensors occasionally pick up faint electrical interference near certain vessels, blips and signals that fade as quickly as they appear. The water itself is unusually still in some areas, even during shifting tides. Is this the effect of the lagoon's volcanic origins and submerged topography? Or do these subtle disturbances point to deeper, undiscovered forces beneath the surface? Some have speculated that Truk Lagoon, like the Bermuda Triangle or Dragon's Triangle, might sit atop a zone of subtle magnetic anomalies, a place where navigational tools behave unpredictably and atmospheric conditions shift without warning. Others believe the wrecks themselves, with their decaying electrical systems and chemical reactions from aging munitions, may be contributing to low-frequency sounds or charged pockets within the water. And then there are the human questions. After the war, Japanese authorities downplayed the losses at Truk, and for decades, the true extent of the disaster remained largely obscured from public memory. Many of the ships that rest at the bottom were undocumented transports, carrying not just soldiers and weapons, but possibly prisoners, classified materials, and cargo whose nature was never officially recorded. What exactly was aboard those sunken vessels? Some divers have discovered unopened crates sealed in silt, boxes containing preserved tools, documents, even sealed chambers not yet explored. Others have found evidence of personal effects, family photographs, ceremonial swords, letters, still resting in drawers, untouched by time. These aren't just wrecks, they're time capsules, sealed beneath a curtain of water and war. The deeper one looks, the more the lagoon begins to feel like something suspended outside of time, where the past lingers not just in metal and bone, but in something intangible. A kind of memory held by the sea. Despite decades of exploration, not all the wrecks have been located. Some are rumored to lie in deeper, less accessible parts of the lagoon, shrouded in silt and darkness. Others are believed to have slipped into underwater crevices formed by volcanic activity, their positions unknown even to military records. What might still rest there, out of reach? As coral slowly creeps over gun turrets and sea life takes shelter within rusting hulls, Truk Lagoon continues to whisper a story not yet fully told. A place where history doesn't lie in books or monuments, but breathes just beneath the surface, mute, waiting. And so we ask, are these wrecks merely relics of a battle long past? Or are they part of something larger, something hidden, waiting for eyes willing to see and ears willing to listen in the silence of the deep? From the silent wrecks of Truk Lagoon, where war's memory sleeps beneath coral and steel, we journey to a different kind of mystery. One not born of battle, but of time itself. Beneath the cold, gray waters separating England from mainland Europe lies a forgotten landscape. A place where rivers once flowed, forests stretched wide, and humans walked freely, before it all was lost to the sea. This is the English Channel, a familiar geographic boundary today, but thousands of years ago, it was not a channel at all. It was land, an ancient green expanse connecting Britain to what is now France, Belgium, and the Netherlands. And hidden beneath its waves are the fossilized remains of this drowned world. Sonar scans of the sea floor, conducted over the last few decades, have revealed something remarkable. Carved deep into the seabed are the unmistakable traces of ancient river systems, broad valleys, braided channels, and winding tributaries etched like scars into the rock. These were not small streams. They were vast, complex waterways, part of a massive network that once drained through what we now call the Channel. These riverbeds are remnants of a landscape known as Doggerland, a name given to the now submerged region that connected Great Britain to continental Europe during the last ice age. At the time, much of the Earth's water was locked in glaciers, and sea levels were up to 120 meters lower than they are today. What we now think of as the seabed was then fertile land, home to deer, wolves, mammoths, and people. But who were they? Archaeological evidence, though sparse, suggests that humans lived in this area as early as 10,000 BC. Flint tools, fragments of bone, and traces of fire pits have been dredged from fishing nets. Some artifacts date back to Mesolithic cultures, revealing a world of hunter-gatherers who lived in what must have seemed like an endless plain, crisscrossed by rivers, shaded by forest, and teeming with game. And then, it disappeared. Gradually, as the ice age ended and glaciers melted, sea levels began to rise. At first, the water came slowly, rivers deepened, marshlands crept in. But then came a series of catastrophic events, most notably the Storegga Slide, a massive undersea landslide off the coast of Norway around 6,200 BC. It triggered a colossal tsunami, which swept across the North Sea basin, drowning much of Doggerland in a single brutal surge. The survivors would have watched their world vanish, villages swallowed, trails erased, and the land beneath their feet turned to ocean. And with it, an entire chapter of human history slipped beneath the waves. Modern technology has begun to piece that chapter back together. In recent years, high-resolution marine surveys and sediment sampling have unveiled entire networks of ancient rivers, flowing through submerged valleys, some as wide as the Thames or the Rhine. Their paths suggest once thriving ecosystems, with floodplains, river deltas, and even possible human settlements now sealed beneath layers of silt and sand. Yet much remains unknown. Why are certain valleys unnaturally deep? Some researchers have noted strange cuts in the seabed that don't align with normal fluvial erosion. Could they be the result of ancient seismic activity? Or do they hint at something else? Structures or alterations made by early civilizations, long before recorded history. Other anomalies have also emerged. In certain sections of the seafloor, magnetic readings fluctuate. Small but measurable variations, not easily explained by geology alone. Are these simply natural iron deposits buried beneath the sediments? Or is something else embedded in the earth? Something shaped, perhaps, not by water or tectonics, but by human hands? Speculative voices, though few, have raised the question. Could Doggerland have been more than just a Mesolithic hunting ground? Might it have harbored early settlements advanced beyond what we currently believe possible? A lost society erased not by time, but by sea? Mainstream archaeologists remain cautious. The evidence so far supports a gradual, natural process. Land lost over thousands of years, not a single forgotten civilization. Yet even among scholars, there's acknowledgement that we've only scratched the surface. The English Channel floor spans over 75,000 square kilometers, much of it unmapped, much of it unreachable. What might still be buried in the deeper valleys? What stories lie locked in the ancient riverbeds, preserved in cold, compacted layers? As the tides rise and fall above the channel, the world beneath remains still, frozen in time, inaccessible, yet persistent. Occasionally, the sea returns a fragment, a carved tool, a broken tusk, a scatter of footprints pressed into long-lost mud, clues from a world that once breathed open air and now lies under fathoms of salt water. We stand on modern shores and look across a stretch of water that once was land. And beneath that water, rivers once flowed freely, carving paths that no longer reach the sea. Who followed them? Where did they lead? And what else might they still conceal beneath their winding beds, waiting, patient, undisturbed for over 10,000 years? From the ancient drowned valleys beneath the English Channel, where forgotten rivers once coursed through now silent landscapes, we cross into the heartland of North America, far from any ocean, in a place where the air is still and the mysteries lie quiet beneath the surface. In southern Wisconsin, nestled between farmland and forest, sits Rock Lake, a small, unassuming body of water, calm, serene, but beneath its rippling surface, locals say, is something unexpected and ancient. They speak of stone, of perfect angles, of a pyramid submerged beneath the murky depths. The lake lies near the town of Lake Mills, not far from the enigmatic archaeological site of Aztalan, an ancient settlement occupied by a Mississippian culture between roughly 1000 and 1300 AD. Aztalan is known for its earthen mounds, defensive stockades, and artifacts suggesting a complex society engaged in agriculture, ritual, and trade. But while Aztalan sits on dry land, Rock Lake has guarded its secrets beneath the waterline for centuries. Local legends passed down by early European settlers in the 19th century, and even earlier by Native American oral traditions, describe strange stone structures on the lakebed. Not scattered rocks or natural formations, but organized shapes, rectangular blocks, long causeways, and most famously, a pyramid-like structure that some claim once rose above the surface before being swallowed by rising waters. In 1937, these stories gained new attention when two men, using early diving gear, reported seeing what they described as a stone mound beneath the lake. Their accounts detailed carefully laid stonework and right angles, not the randomness of glacial debris, but the deliberate geometry of construction. Others followed. In the decades since, divers, sonar teams, and even amateur archaeologists have attempted to document what lies below. Some claim success. In the 1990s, side-scan sonar surveys revealed submerged features along the lakebed, particularly a large, pyramid-like shape with a flattened top and sloping sides, located in the lake's southern basin. Descriptions speak of a structure approximately 18 to 20 feet tall, made of interlocking stones arranged in tiers, not unlike the mound architecture seen at Aztalan itself. Other formations appear nearby, stone paths or walls leading toward the central pyramid, suggesting it may have been part of a larger complex, now buried under silt and algae. So what is it? Mainstream geologists argue that the features are natural, likely the result of glacial movements that deposited dolomite and limestone in linear patterns during the last ice age. The human brain, after all, is hardwired to see patterns, to find meaning in randomness. In this view, the pyramid is not a pyramid, but a coincidence of shape and shadow. But others are not so sure. Could this submerged structure be a relic of an ancient culture predating even the Mississippians? A ceremonial site, a burial monument, or something else entirely? Some have pointed to the possibility of rising water levels slowly submerging earlier construction. If the lake's waterline rose over centuries, as it likely did due to environmental changes or human alterations to nearby rivers, any structures near the shoreline could have become submerged gradually, preserving them beneath layers of sediment. Unlike wood or bone, stone would survive, quiet, unchanged, invisible to the surface world. A few theorists go further still, connecting Rock Lake's pyramid to older myths of a vanished North American civilization. Some draw comparisons to Mesoamerican pyramid architecture, suggesting cultural connections or even migrations lost to history. Others reference the Wisconsin Atlantis, a fringe hypothesis that proposes an advanced pre-Columbian culture once spread across the Midwest, later destroyed or absorbed by later indigenous populations. There is no hard evidence for such a civilization, but the idea persists, fueled by scattered anomalies, lost mounds, and now, a pyramid beneath a Midwestern lake. There are also practical obstacles to uncovering the truth. Rock Lake's water is dark and silty, its visibility poor. Thick algae blooms often reduce line of sight to mere inches. Underwater exploration is difficult, and visibility-dependent technologies like sonar are limited by the lake's shallow, vegetative bottom. Efforts to map the pyramid have produced inconsistent results, some showing clear shapes, others showing only indistinct masses of stone. No comprehensive archaeological excavation has been permitted or undertaken. The structure, if it exists, is still there, beneath layers of time and water, guarded by silence and doubt. But the questions remain. Why would an ancient people have built such a monument here, far from any known river trade network or cultural center? Was it sacred? Was it defensive? Or was it never human-made at all, and we are simply projecting meaning onto the natural rhythms of the earth? And what of the other submerged anomalies reported nearby? Low walls, stone circles, and what some divers claim are upright monoliths. Is it possible that we are glimpsing the edge of something forgotten? A cultural footprint blurred by centuries of flood and decay? As we stand on the shores of Rock Lake today, watching the surface ripple beneath sunlight and wind, it's easy to forget what might lie just out of sight. A stone shape, a story without words, a mystery untouched by time. And so we wonder, is the lake merely reflecting the sky, or concealing a civilization that time and water have done their best to erase? As we leave the still mysterious waters of Wisconsin's Rock Lake, where stone geometry sleeps beneath the silt, we journey northward, far beyond the forests and farmland. Past Iceland's volcanic spine, beyond Norway's shadowed fjords, the waters begin to shift. The air grows sharper. The sea darkens to a near black. This is the Greenland Sea, a remote and frigid corner of the North Atlantic where ice meets water and silence reigns. Few ships venture here without purpose. Even fewer linger. But somewhere within this desolate expanse lies something deeply strange, something that, to this day, defies complete explanation. In 2012, satellite imagery and sonar scans began to detect an anomaly off the eastern coast of Greenland. At first, it was subtle, just an unusual shape beneath the sea, obscured beneath layers of glacial melt and deep sediment. But further scans revealed more, a symmetrical, distinctly geometric structure resting on the ocean floor, some 2,000 meters below the surface. Measured at over 1,200 meters in length, nearly 3/4 of a mile, it appeared not as a natural outcrop or seamount, but as a sharply contoured formation with a long, rectangular central body flanked by wing-like projections, a shape that did not seem to belong. Geologists were quick to propose a natural explanation. The Greenland Sea sits atop a complex tectonic boundary where the North American and Eurasian plates slowly diverge. Underwater ridges, volcanic formations, and deep fissures mark this seafloor. Could this anomaly simply be the result of ancient tectonic uplift, an angular plateau sculpted by the forces of time and pressure? That's possible, but even among experts, the symmetry was puzzling. The structure showed signs of being raised in tiers, with uniform dimensions too precise for typical underwater lava formations. Some pointed out that it resembled a kind of artificial platform, too large to be a shipwreck, too angular to be dismissed entirely as a random geological event. Intriguingly, the structure's orientation seemed misaligned with the surrounding seafloor ridges, suggesting it was not part of the natural tectonic activity in the area. In other words, it didn't fit. Curiosity deepened when nearby sensors recorded unusual acoustic signals in the same region, low-frequency pulses, faint but consistent, picked up intermittently over a span of several months. The source was never identified. Was it ice, pressure shifts, or something else altogether? Some researchers propose the presence of methane hydrate deposits below the sea floor, which can produce tremors and bubble plumes when disturbed. But these pulses didn't behave like typical gas discharges. They were more rhythmic, almost mechanical in character. And they seemed to originate in proximity to the anomaly itself. Speculation grew. Could this be the remains of a submerged outpost lost to time and ice, a remnant of a civilization predating known history? Some theorists pointed to the post-glacial flooding events that followed the last ice age, which reshaped coastlines and submerged entire regions. If early cultures had once explored the fringes of Greenland before it was locked beneath ice, could something have been built and then lost when the world shifted? Others took the speculation further. Some have linked the Greenland Sea Anomaly to the broader mystery of underwater structures found across the globe, from Yonaguni near Japan to the Baltic Sea's controversial UFO-like formation. A pattern, they suggest, of unexplained architecture lying in some of Earth's most remote and hostile waters. But there are no ruins here, no carvings, no artifacts pulled from the depths, only shape, shadow, and silence. The area around the anomaly is inhospitable to exploration. Icebergs drift unpredictably, weather can shift violently, and the sea, even in summer, resists entry with crushing cold and near-total darkness. To this day, no manned mission has visited the site. No deep-sea probe has confirmed what lies beneath the surface. The data we have is limited: sonar scans, satellite images, and scattered acoustic readings. Still, the questions persist. If it is a natural formation, why does it so closely resemble artificial structure? If it is not, who or what created it, and when? More fringe voices even suggest something still resides beneath, citing the acoustic pulses and intermittent electromagnetic interference recorded by oceanographic vessels nearby. But mainstream science has yet to substantiate such claims, and without direct sampling, the anomaly remains exactly that, a curiosity suspended in data and speculation. Perhaps in time, as our underwater technologies improve, We will return to this place with clearer eyes and sharper instruments. Perhaps we'll find nothing more than rock shaped by ancient forces. Or perhaps we'll uncover something far stranger, something that may challenge the very timeline of human memory. Until then, the Greenland Sea Anomaly remains hidden beneath miles of black water and drifting ice, a shape out of place, a sound without source. And so we're left to wonder, is this just another quirk of geology, misunderstood from a distance? Or is there something beneath Greenland's frozen waves, waiting, silent and untouched, since before the first cities were built, before the first histories were written? From the frozen hush of the Greenland Sea, where strange signals and unplaceable shapes lie buried in the dark, we now shift toward warmer waters. But the warmth of the Gulf of Mexico masks its own secrets. Stretching from the Florida Keys to the Yucatán Peninsula and the coasts of Texas and Louisiana, this sea is a mosaic of soft currents, deep trenches, and shifting sands. It is a place where ancient meteorites have left their mark, where oil fields hum beneath the waves, and where, in recent years, sonar has revealed something deeply unexpected. In 2011, a routine sonar mapping survey commissioned by marine researchers near the Sigsbee Deep, one of the deepest regions in the Gulf, returned a puzzling image. Amidst the rolling contours of the ocean floor, a structure emerged that did not match the known geological record. It was angular, massive, and shockingly symmetrical, an object over 140 meters wide, buried beneath layers of sediment, yet still sharply defined in sonar contrast. Its shape bore resemblance to a flattened dome or platform, with edges that appeared almost engineered, straight lines where none were expected. The formation did not align with known salt domes, coral heads, or shipwrecks, nor did it resemble the debris from oil infrastructure, which has long dotted the Gulf's floor. And although buried beneath layers of silt and sand, the object gave off echoes, sonar returns, suggesting internal cavities or varying densities within. It was, quite simply, an anomaly. At first, researchers approached it with caution. Sonar can be misleading. Subsurface scans often produce false positives, optical illusions formed by shadow, mineral density, or data interference. But further passes across the site using multiple frequencies continued to return the same pattern. The anomaly was consistent, persistent, real. Geologists suggested it could be a rare kind of undersea limestone formation, perhaps shaped by unique tectonic or sedimentary processes. The Gulf is geologically complex, marked by subsidence zones and ancient reef structures. Still, none could explain the near-perfect geometry of the object. That's when the speculation began. Some theorists pointed out that the anomaly lies not far from the edge of the Chicxulub crater, the massive impact site left by the asteroid that struck Earth some 66 million years ago, contributing to the extinction of the dinosaurs. Could the anomaly be a remnant of that cataclysm? A displaced geological feature reshaped by shock waves? Or could it be something more recent, something not natural at all? A handful of independent researchers proposed that the formation resembled a buried structure, perhaps a stepped platform or sunken base of unknown origin. Theories began to swirl, invoking lost civilizations, advanced pre-Columbian cultures, or even early seafaring societies that once inhabited the Gulf Coast before it was transformed by rising seas. There is, after all, archaeological precedent for advanced ancient activity in the region. Along the Yucatán and Gulf shores, remnants of Olmec and Maya settlements suggest a deep cultural and maritime legacy. Massive ceremonial centers, aligned with celestial bodies, once rose from jungle floors and riverbanks. Could this sonar anomaly be part of that forgotten history, now buried under ocean and time? Some even linked the site to Native American legends from Gulf Coast tribes, who speak of a time when the sea was lower and great cities stood along its edge. Oral traditions mention land swallowed by rising tides and great storms that changed the coastline forever. Could the anomaly be a trace of a place once known, now erased? Still, without a physical survey, without eyes or instruments directly on the object, such questions remain just that. Questions. The depth of the anomaly, coupled with its location in an area dominated by oil interests and sediment instability, has made direct exploration difficult. Submersible drones sent nearby encountered visibility issues. Attempts at sampling were hampered by silt drift and strong subsurface currents. Yet despite these challenges, the object has not disappeared from the conversation. In 2017, another pass over the site using newer, high-resolution multi-beam sonar revealed even more striking details. The object appeared to rise in gentle steps, with 3 discernible levels, almost like a ziggurat or platform pyramid, though deeply eroded. Some noted the resemblance to submerged structures in other parts of the world, such as the enigmatic formations off the coast of Yonaguni, Japan. But again, no definitive conclusion could be reached. The anomaly sits in silence, untouched and unexplained, beneath miles of water, sediment, and speculative thought. Mainstream science remains cautious, citing the lack of hard data and the inherent ambiguity of sonar imaging. For now, the object is classified simply as a geological curiosity, a feature, a bump in the data. And yet, the questions linger. Could it be the buried memory of something older than our maps, older than our histories? A relic of a time when humans lived along coastlines now underwater? Or is it simply nature once again shaping the illusion of intention in stone? In the vastness of the Gulf of Mexico, where oil platforms rise and storms brew with little warning, this anomaly rests, waiting. Hidden not by secrecy, but by depth, sediment, and time. And so we ask, what else lies buried beneath the seafloor, just beyond reach, just beyond understanding? What fragments of forgotten history, or forgotten geology, sleep in silence, waiting for light, sound, or human curiosity to find them again? From the buried formation beneath the Gulf of Mexico, silent and shrouded in sediment, we now cross into the heart of the Old World. East of the Balkans, west of the Caucasus, lies a sea of secrets. The Black Sea, once landlocked and now quietly expansive, is a body of water defined by contradiction. It is both ancient and evolving, bordered by myth and history. And near its northeastern shore, off the coast of the Russian town of Anapa, a fortress sleeps beneath the waves, stone by stone, a mystery slowly reclaimed by the sea. Above the surface, Anapa is a modern resort town. Sunlight glints off hotel windows. Tourists wander its boardwalks, unaware of what lies just offshore. But divers who have explored the nearby seafloor tell a different story, one of submerged walls, collapsed bastions, and straight-line stone formations that appear anything but natural. Just beyond the surf, at depths between 5 and 10 meters, lie the ruins of what many believe to be a sunken citadel. Long, linear foundations arranged in grid-like precision, interspersed with collapsed structures and dressed stone blocks. These aren't random boulders deposited by erosion. They bear the hallmarks of human construction, right angles, deliberate spacing, and the kind of structural planning associated with fortified sites. Archaeological interest in the region isn't new. Anapa is known to have been home to ancient Greek colonists who settled there as early as the 6th century BC. Back then, the city was called Gorgippia, a wealthy port and trading hub that linked the Hellenistic world with the tribes of the North Caucasus. Later, the area saw the rise and fall of Byzantine outposts, Genoese trading stations, and Ottoman defenses. Each civilization left its imprint, some above ground, others, it seems, below. But the fortress submerged near Anapa doesn't fit easily into any one timeline. Some researchers believe the ruins could belong to an earlier pre-Greek settlement, perhaps a fortification built by the native Maotian tribes or other cultures whose histories were never fully recorded. Others argue that the ruins may be remnants of a later medieval structure, eroded and overtaken by the sea due to coastal subsidence or seismic activity. There is, after all, geological precedent. The Black Sea has undergone significant transformations over the last 10,000 years. Once a vast freshwater lake, it was flooded by rising Mediterranean waters around 6000 BC, a dramatic event some scholars associate with ancient flood myths, including those found in Mesopotamian and biblical traditions. The shorelines shifted, settlements were swallowed, and with them, perhaps, entire chapters of history. Could the fortress of Anapa have once stood above ground, only to be gradually overtaken by the changing sea? Or did it collapse into the water more recently, due to an earthquake or tsunami? What complicates the picture is the lack of detailed, large-scale excavation. Most of what we know comes from small expeditions, independent dive reports, and fragmented surveys conducted over the past few decades. Underwater visibility in the area is often poor, clouded by silt and algae blooms. Many of the stones are now colonized by marine life, their original form obscured. And yet, divers return with stories. Walls that stretch farther than expected, arch-like formations half buried in sand, and in some cases, the faint outline of what could have been a watchtower, its foundation still intact. Artifacts are scarce, but a handful of findings have raised eyebrows. Pottery shards, iron fittings, and carved stone fragments have been recovered near the site. Some are Greek in origin. Others remain unidentified, neither Hellenistic, Roman, nor clearly medieval. Are they remnants of trade, or hints at an undocumented culture? Speculative theories abound. Some suggest the fortress may be part of a forgotten seafaring people who predated the Greeks, perhaps a link to ancient maritime cultures once stretching along the northern Black Sea coast, now largely lost to time. Others entertain a more mythic possibility, that the fortress belonged to one of the vanished cities mentioned by ancient historians, places that existed only briefly, flourishing in a forgotten age before being swept away by war or waves. Even more fringe theories have emerged, connecting the Anapa anomaly to broader patterns of submerged architecture across the Black Sea basin, from structures near Bulgaria's Varna Bay to formations detected off the Crimean Peninsula. Are these isolated ruins, or part of a once thriving coastal network, now fragmented beneath the sea? Without more extensive investigation, the questions remain open. Is the submerged fortress near Anapa merely a collapsed outpost from a well-documented era? Or is it a clue, a partially buried key to a longer, older history not yet written? One marked not by the polished narratives of empire, but by the silent endurance of stone, lost to shifting tides. As currents flow past the ruins and fish weave through the fallen arches, time continues its quiet erosion. The sea forgets slowly, but it never forgets completely. So we're left to ask, what else lies beneath the Black Sea's murky veil, beyond the reach of light and knowledge? And will the fortress of Anapa, patiently submerged and partially revealed, one day speak its story clearly, or remain another unanswered whisper beneath the waves? From the sunken stones of Anapa, where ancient walls sleep beneath the Black Sea, we now drift into deeper waters, darker waters. Far from any shore, beneath the turbulent heart of the North Atlantic, lies the final resting place of a vessel built for stealth and silence. But this was no ordinary submarine. This was the I-52, a Japanese cargo submarine tasked with a mission unlike any other. Its objective: to reach Nazi Germany during the height of World War II. Its cargo: a collection of strategic materials, classified technology, and, if reports are to be believed, gold. A great deal of it. The I-52 was part of a secret wartime program known as the Yanagi Missions, covert exchanges between Imperial Japan and Nazi Germany. In a world divided by oceans and conflict, the Axis powers needed new ways to share knowledge, raw materials, and technology. Submarines became the couriers of that alliance. And in 1944, the I-52 was sent westward across the Atlantic, a lone steel shadow slipping through enemy waters on a voyage veiled in secrecy. She departed from Kure, Japan, in March of that year, heavily laden with 2.2 tons of opium, 146 tons of rubber, tungsten, molybdenum, quinine, and, allegedly, over 2 tons of gold bullion packed in sealed containers. The gold, it said, was intended as payment for precision machinery and advanced weapons systems from Germany. It was a trade of power, resources for technology, wealth for war. But the I-52 would never reach its destination. As it neared the mid-Atlantic rendezvous point off the Azores, where it was scheduled to meet a German U-boat and receive updated instructions, it was intercepted. American intelligence had cracked the communication codes and knew exactly where the exchange was to take place. On the night of June 23, 1944, the USS Bogue and her accompanying aircraft launched an ambush. A Grumman Avenger dropped sonobuoys into the dark ocean, detected the submarine's presence, and released a Mark 24 homing torpedo. At 11:40 p.m., the I-52 was gone. Her wreck remained undiscovered for nearly 50 years. Then, in 1995, American deep-sea explorer Paul Tidwell located what he believed to be the remains of the I-52 nearly 3 miles beneath the ocean surface. Footage taken by remotely operated vehicles confirmed a massive submarine lying intact on the seafloor, its hull riddled with the scars of combat. The discovery was hailed as a breakthrough in underwater archaeology, and yet it raised more questions than it answered. Despite the submarine's documented cargo, no gold has ever been recovered. Over the years, Tidwell and his team returned to the site multiple times, hoping to locate the fabled bullion. But the wreck lies deep, at over 17,000 feet, where pressure is crushing and conditions are unforgiving. Equipment failures, financial hurdles, and legal complications have repeatedly stalled salvage operations. And so, the gold, if it exists, remains hidden. Skeptics argue that the gold may never have been aboard the I-52 in the first place. Wartime shipping manifests are notoriously unreliable, especially when classified missions were involved. Some suggest the gold was offloaded prior to the submarine's final journey, rerouted through a different exchange, or perhaps never more than rumor and misinformation designed to mislead Allied intelligence. But others insist that the bullion was real, and still lies there, sealed inside the submarine's cargo hold, waiting. There are even whispers of more elaborate theories. Some propose that the wreck has already been quietly salvaged, perhaps by covert operations operating under commercial or governmental cover. After all, gold does not decay, and under international maritime law, the value of such a recovery would be astronomical. Could someone have found a way to retrieve it unnoticed? Others believe the real value of the I-52 may not have been in its physical cargo, but in its classified contents. According to declassified wartime intercepts, the submarine may have also carried blueprints, encryption devices, or even samples of German wartime technology, items which, if they survived the sinking, could offer insight into the more secretive corners of WW2 history. Still, there are no definitive answers. The wreck rests in silence, sealed by depth and time, offering only glimpses through flickering lights and robotic eyes. The gold remains unconfirmed. The full list of cargo, unverified. And yet, the image lingers, a steel leviathan buried beneath thousands of meters of dark water, its secrets locked behind riveted doors, its mission unfinished, its fate sealed in one instant of sound and pressure. Was the I-52 simply a casualty of war? A lost messenger between two doomed empires? Or is it something more? A sunken archive of forgotten transactions and hidden agendas? As the currents pass over its shattered hull and the seabed settles around it like dust on a forgotten vault, we're left with a question that echoes in the deep. What else lies down there, undiscovered, unspoken, and untouched, not only by light, but by truth? From the silent wreck of the I-52, locked in the crushing darkness of the Atlantic, we now shift to warmer waters once again, this time to the vibrant, silt-laced depths of the Indian Ocean. Off the coast of western India, where waves roll toward the shores of Gujarat and Goa, something peculiar has been found. Not a shipwreck, not the ruins of a city, but a series of small, spherical objects, smooth, metallic, and inexplicable. The story begins not with a formal expedition, but with a fishing net. In recent years, local fishermen working along India's Konkan coast began reporting unusual catches, heavy, dense spheres tangled among fish and seaweed. They were unlike anything the men had seen before. Metallic orbs, roughly the size of coconuts, cold to the touch, and unblemished despite the corrosive saltwater environment. Word spread quickly, and soon marine researchers from nearby universities were called in to investigate. The spheres, eventually numbering in the dozens, were sent to laboratories for analysis. What they discovered only deepened the mystery. The composition of the orbs was strange. High concentrations of titanium and vanadium were present, elements commonly used in aerospace and industrial alloys, but rare in natural underwater environments. Some spheres appeared hollow, with internal cavities or odd layering. Others were solid, but oddly magnetized. Their density was inconsistent, and despite being retrieved from different locations and at varying depths, they were remarkably uniform in size and shape. No serial numbers, no seams, no markings. Theories soon followed. One of the earliest suggestions was that the spheres were remnants of re-entered spacecraft or satellite debris, parts of rockets or orbiting vehicles that had burned through Earth's atmosphere and landed in the ocean. This could explain the titanium content, a material often used in heat-resistant aerospace design. But there were problems with this theory. Most space debris that survives re-entry is large and irregularly shaped. Very little would remain perfectly spherical, and none of the retrieved orbs bore the typical scorch marks or ablation layers expected from such a descent. Others proposed meteorites, specifically micrometeorites, which can sometimes form round shapes as they pass through the atmosphere. Yet again, these orbs seemed too large, too polished, and too uniform. Their internal structure didn't match the mineral composition of known cosmic fragments. Then came the archaeological speculation. Could the spheres be remnants of some ancient technology? Artifacts from a forgotten coastal civilization? After all, this part of the Indian coast is rich in history. Ancient cities, such as Dwarka, long believed to be myth, have been partially confirmed through underwater archaeology. Submerged walls, streets, and stonework have been found off the coast of Gujarat, hinting at a broader story hidden beneath the silt. But these orbs don't match any known cultural or technological artifact from South Asia's ancient past. They are not religious icons. They are not tools. They are not beads or ceremonial items. And yet, they seem deliberately made. Some fringe theorists have connected the spheres to even broader global phenomena. Similar metallic orbs have been reported in disparate parts of the world, from the seafloor near Central America to the deserts of Africa and Australia. In each case, they appear isolated, enigmatic, and resistant to conventional explanation. Could they be a kind of universal artifact? A repeating anomaly that defies our attempts to categorize it? There is even a small community of researchers who draw parallels between these spheres and ancient mythologies. In Hindu cosmology, for example, tales from the Mahabharata and Ramayana describe celestial weapons, flying vehicles called vimanas, and objects with unknown energy. Could these orbs somehow relate to those stories? Are they physical echoes of a long-forgotten technological era, preserved in myth and misunderstood in science? Of course, mainstream researchers urge caution. The most accepted explanation, though still speculative, is that the orbs may be industrial byproducts, perhaps from offshore drilling operations, old munitions, or ballast waste from decades-old cargo ships. Spheres of slag metal can sometimes form under high-pressure industrial conditions, later discarded into the ocean. But this theory, too, struggles to explain the purity, the uniform size, and the apparent age of the orbs recovered. Complicating matters further is the lack of clear provenance. Most of the spheres were discovered by accident, without GPS coordinates or proper depth logs. By the time researchers arrived, the orbs had been handled, cleaned, and stored, removing critical environmental clues. No one knows exactly where they came from. And so, the metallic orbs of India remain a mystery, uncatalogued, unexplained. Their discovery offers more questions than answers, floating between science and speculation, between metallurgy and myth. Are they simply the forgotten waste of industry? The hardened residue of forgotten war machines or satellites? Or are they something more elusive, a fragment of a story we've yet to recognize, scattered like breadcrumbs across the ocean floor? As the tide rolls in and fishermen return to their nets, the orbs continue to surface now and then, smooth, silent, unyielding. They carry no inscriptions, offer no explanation, but they remain, strange and real, pulled from the deep with every cast of the net. What else lies just beneath the silt, waiting to be seen not as debris, but as a clue? From the smooth metallic orbs off the coast of India, enigmatic and seemingly crafted, we descend now into a very different kind of mystery. Not a relic of lost civilization, not a sunken artifact or a vanished ship, but a living creature, one so unusual, so alien to the world we know, that it has challenged our understanding of biology itself. It lives in the absolute dark, at the bottom of the Indian Ocean, in a place where sunlight has never reached, where pressures would crush most life, and where temperatures swing violently near hydrothermal vents, cracks in the Earth's crust that spew scalding, mineral-rich water into the abyss. This is the domain of the Scaly-Foot Gastropod. First discovered in 2001 near the Cayray hydrothermal vent field, this small deep-sea snail, Chrysomalin squamiferum, measures barely 5 centimeters in length. Yet it is unlike any mollusk known to science. Its appearance is both delicate and formidable, a rounded, dark shell encased in concentric layers, with a foot lined in tiny overlapping scales. But what sets this creature apart is not simply its shape. It's what it's made of. This snail is armored in iron. The outermost layer of its shell contains iron sulfide, specifically greigite and pyrite, two minerals more commonly associated with ore deposits and planetary cores than with soft-bodied life. These same minerals are used in the construction of stealth technologies and magnetic materials. Yet here, deep in the ocean, nature has crafted them into armor, layered over a soft, living organism in one of Earth's most hostile environments. And the surprises don't end there. The snail's foot, which it uses to crawl along the superheated rocks near the vent, is also covered in scales, or sclerites, also infused with iron sulfide. These biological plates are unique, and no other known animal has developed such a mineralized structure as part of its body. Scientists are still studying how exactly this gastropod incorporates the metal. Does it extract minerals directly from the vent fluids? Or do symbiotic bacteria assist in the process? In either case, the implications are profound. Here, in a world devoid of sunlight, where life is fueled not by photosynthesis but by chemosynthesis, chemical reactions between microbes and minerals, evolution has produced a creature that doesn't merely survive the deep, it thrives in it, using the raw materials of the earth itself as protection. But why? What threats dwell at such depths that necessitate a shell of iron? Some researchers suggest that the armor may defend against predatory crabs or hydrothermal vent worms, both of which have developed specialized feeding mechanisms in these ecosystems. Others propose that the iron shell may help regulate internal temperatures or resist the corrosive chemical soup around the vent field. And yet, despite the theories, no definitive explanation has been agreed upon. The Scaly-Foot gastropod defies categorization. It is not just a curiosity, it's a challenge to what we believe is biologically possible. Evolution, we often think, moves toward simplicity in extreme environments. But here, complexity blooms in the darkness, and some have begun to ask stranger questions. Could this snail be a modern echo of a much older Earth, when life was still forming in the mineral-rich seas of the Hadean and Archean eons? Is it a living fossil, not merely surviving but preserving processes and adaptations we've long thought extinct? Or is it something even more enigmatic, an example of life that evolved independently in the depths, disconnected from the surface biosphere almost entirely? In recent years, as mining interests have targeted deep-sea hydrothermal vents for rare earth metals, the Scaly-Foot gastropod has come into the spotlight, not just as a marvel, but as a warning. Its habitat is fragile, limited to just a few known vent systems. It has already been placed on the IUCN Red List of endangered species, the first deep-sea species to receive such a designation, highlighting how little we understand about the ecosystems that lie beneath us. And yet, how much more might there be? If a snail can evolve to weave metal into its body, what else has the deep hidden from us? What other life forms, fueled by chemistry, armored in minerals, and shaped by ancient forces, lie beyond the reach of our submarines and sensors? In the black depths where tectonic plates collide, where heat and pressure twist the rules of life into something unfamiliar, the Scaly-Foot gastropod crawls slowly, unhurried, untouched. It does not know it is a mystery. It simply endures. And as we peer into its armored shell, we are left to wonder, not just about the creature itself, but about the deep, unseen world that shaped it. What forces forged its armor? What secrets swirl in the venting smoke beneath the earth? And what else, armored or not, waits in the dark, quietly rewriting the rules of life as we know it? From the mineral-forging life forms of the deep Indian Ocean, we now resurface into the bitter cold of the far north, a place where steel, silence, and secrecy have long converged. The Barents Sea, lying above the Arctic Circle, is a stretch of frigid water where ice flows merge with deep, shifting currents. It's a region shaped by extremes. In summer, it glows with endless light. In winter, it sinks into long darkness, and beneath its surface, in that cold and quiet deep, rests something still, a steel shadow, a vessel entombed in permafrost and mystery. The wreckage lies on the seafloor not far from the Novaya Zemlya archipelago, in waters patrolled for decades during the Cold War. To the untrained eye, it is just another twisted submarine wreck, slowly rusting beneath the currents. But those who've studied it, or tried to, know that this is no ordinary relic of naval warfare. The submarine has no identifying markings, no conning tower numbers, no obvious registration, and it's not listed in any known naval records, Western or Russian. Officially, it doesn't exist. And yet it's there, real, intact, and frozen in place. It was first discovered by accident in the late 1990s by a joint Russian-Norwegian deep-sea ecological survey. The mission was intended to monitor radioactive leakage from scuttled Cold War-era submarines and nuclear waste dumping sites, remnants of a tense era in which both NATO and Soviet forces used the Barents as a testing ground and graveyard. When the sonar signature of the unidentified wreck appeared, it raised immediate interest. The submarine was found at a depth of approximately 400 meters, deeper than typical coastal wrecks, yet far shallower than abyssal plains. Its shape was sleek, angular, yet not consistent with any known submarine class. Its hull bore design features that puzzled naval experts. A hybrid between diesel-electric propulsion systems and early nuclear configurations, with a hull contour suggestive of post-World War II engineering, but with anachronistic elements that didn't quite fit the timeline. Attempts to retrieve serial numbers or plaques were inconclusive. The exterior was heavily iced, possibly from frozen hydrothermal vents or deep-water brine pockets that had formed a kind of natural casing over parts of the wreck. Some divers described the hull as being flash-frozen, preserved with unnatural clarity, almost as if it had not aged at all since it sank. Was it a Soviet prototype? A Nazi-era relic lost in transit? Or something else entirely? Historians combed through declassified naval records from both NATO and Warsaw Pact archives. No known submarine matching the shape, size, or configuration had ever been reported missing in that region, and yet the wreck measured over 90 meters in length, too large to be overlooked, too modern to be forgotten. The mystery deepened with strange acoustic readings recorded near the site. In 2003, a Norwegian seismic station picked up faint, irregular pulses, low-frequency thumps that seemed to emanate from the direction of the wreck. Not mechanical, not seismic, almost rhythmic. Some dismissed it as ice shifting on the seafloor. Others weren't so sure. And then came the radiation anomalies. Background radiation around the wreck is elevated, but not dangerously so. The pattern is inconsistent with known nuclear leakage. Some suggested the readings may be from a compact, experimental reactor. Others believe the traces could result from an entirely different power system, one never documented in naval design. Speculative theories have emerged over the years. Some point to wartime rumors of advanced German submarine designs developed in the final months of World War II. Craft capable of long duration, silent travel, and perhaps powered by experimental energy sources. Could this be one of those elusive vessels, sunk before reaching its destination? Others tie the wreck to Cold War black projects, joint initiatives between rogue scientific factions on both sides of the Iron Curtain, buried in secrecy, never officially acknowledged. There are whispers of a submarine sent to probe beneath the Arctic ice for geothermal anomalies or to test unknown propulsion systems under cover of polar night. And, as always, there are theories further afield. Some claim the submarine was not constructed on Earth at all, that its design and its disappearance reflects technologies beyond human understanding, that the vessel itself may have been a vessel in the truest sense, a craft meant to enter and exit the sea in ways we do not yet comprehend. But the mystery remains grounded in one simple fact. A large, unidentified submarine lies frozen at the bottom of the Barents Sea, and no one seems to know how or why it got there. Access to the wreck is limited. Harsh weather, geopolitical sensitivities, and logistical challenges have left the site largely unstudied. It rests where it fell, silent in the deep, unclaimed and unresolved. What was its mission? What happened in its final moments? Why was no distress call ever recorded? And more importantly, why does no nation admit to having lost it. In a sea filled with secrets, beneath ice that has long hidden the scars of global tension, the frozen submarine waits, not as a ghost from the past, but as a presence that defies explanation, silent, sealed, and watching. And we are left to wonder, is this merely a forgotten chapter of human history, or the beginning of a story we've never been told? From the frozen wreckage in the Barents Sea, steel sealed in silence, we now turn our attention to something far less visible, but no less unsettling. Not a vessel or a structure, but a sound. A sound that should not exist. A sound that emerges inexplicably from the open ocean, clear, unmistakable, and utterly unexplained. It has come to be known, simply, as the sea whistle. The first officially documented recordings date back to the 1990s, when underwater hydrophones, part of global acoustic monitoring systems established during the Cold War, began detecting strange tonal signatures in remote regions of the world's oceans. Among these was a persistent, high-pitched whistle-like sound. It was unlike anything normally produced by marine life or seismic activity. It began abruptly, lasted for minutes, sometimes hours, and faded just as suddenly as it appeared. Its tone was smooth and hollow, almost metallic. Some described it as resembling a flute played beneath water, or the wind passing through a tight corridor of stone. The frequency range fell within human hearing, and yet no one had ever reported hearing it from the surface. It could only be captured by sensitive underwater listening equipment, tools designed to detect submarine movement, seismic shifts, and oceanic drift. The sea whistle was first triangulated to the South Pacific, somewhere west of the Drake Passage, between the tip of South America and Antarctica, a vast, deep, and largely untraveled part of the ocean. But soon, similar signals began appearing in the North Atlantic and later in the Indian Ocean, thousands of kilometers apart. Each event shared the same characteristics: the distinct tonal pattern, the duration, the slow crescendo and fade, and most notably, the complete absence of any corresponding seismic or meteorological cause. Could it be whales? Cetaceans are known to produce an astonishing range of vocalizations: clicks, whistles, low-frequency groans, and high-pitched chirps. But marine biologists quickly ruled out known species. The sea whistle did not match the pattern of any recorded animal. It lacked modulation, showed no response behavior, and did not localize to known migratory routes. Even the elusive beaked whales, known for their secretive acoustic behavior, failed to match the profile. Could it be geological? Hydrothermal vents and underwater volcanic activity can create strange sounds as gases escape from fissures in the Earth's crust. But such eruptions usually produce broadband noise, chaotic and multitonal, rather than the focused harmonic frequency of the whistle. Moreover, the sea whistle occurs in regions where no tectonic activity has been recorded. The sea floor in those areas is stable, cold, and silent, at least it should be. Some scientists suggested it could be man-made, perhaps a sonar test, an acoustic calibration signal, or some form of classified naval technology. But here again the theory falls short. No military has claimed ownership. The sound is not encrypted. It lacks the chirp pulse structure typical of sonar. And unlike artificial signals, it does not reflect from surrounding objects. It simply echoes outward, as if the ocean itself were singing. And so, speculation grows. Could the sea whistle be a signal? A communication of some kind, not directed at us, but simply passing through us? If so, who or what might be producing it? A handful of researchers have proposed more fringe possibilities: that the sound may be the byproduct of something unknown moving through the ocean at extreme depths. Some compare the phenomenon to the infamous bloop, another unexplained underwater sound recorded in 1997. while the bloop was deep and resonant, resembling the distant groan of some immense biological entity. The sea whistle is precise, controlled, and chillingly musical. Others reach into ancient mythology. In stories from Polynesia to the British Isles, the sea is often said to sing. Whistling winds, eerie tones, and sudden unexplainable sounds have been part of maritime folklore for centuries. Sailors once feared certain tones carried warnings, omens of storms or calls from something beneath the waves. Could it be that these ancient accounts were rooted in something real? A naturally occurring acoustic phenomenon, rare and poorly understood, passed down as legend? Or are we hearing something else entirely? If so, what is its purpose? What causes it to begin, seemingly without warning, and vanish again into the depths? Perhaps the sea whistle is nothing more than a convergence of obscure natural forces, pressure, temperature, and current all aligned. The ocean is vast. It covers more than 70% of the Earth's surface, and yet over 80% of it remains unmapped, unmeasured, and unexplored. We listen to the sea with machines and algorithms, but still we do not understand its language. So, the sea whistle remains. Not a ghost, not a myth, but a sound, recorded, verified, and unresolved. It comes from nowhere, travels everywhere, and leaves no trace but the question, what is trying to speak beneath the waves, and why can't we answer? From the strange echoing tones of the sea whistle, we now descend into a part of the ocean even less understood, one cloaked not only in darkness, but in something stranger, unnatural light. A light that pulses not in soothing blue or soft green, but in an unexpected, almost alarming hue. In the deepest parts of the ocean, beyond sunlight, beyond reach, witnesses and instruments alike have recorded a phenomenon that continues to puzzle marine scientists: the sudden appearance of deep red, flashing bioluminescence, light that blinks through the blackness, then disappears, as if never there. The Hadal zones of the ocean, depths that fall below 6,000 meters, are some of the most extreme environments on Earth. Crushing pressure, zero sunlight, frigid temperatures. And yet, even here, life has adapted. Bioluminescence is common in these depths. It's nature's way of communicating in the dark, used for mating, camouflage, and even predation. Most deep-sea organisms emit blue or green light, wavelengths that travel farther through water. These colors dominate because they are the most efficient. And that's why red bioluminescence, particularly bright, rhythmic flashes of red light, has baffled researchers. It began with remotely operated vehicles, ROVs, exploring the Mariana Trench in the early 2000s. Cameras recorded what appeared to be momentary flashes of intense red light coming from undefined points within the water column. At first, they were dismissed as malfunctions or reflections. But repeated missions captured the same effect: sharp bursts of red illumination, sometimes blinking in sequences, at depths where no known organisms were expected to emit such wavelengths. Then came direct visual confirmation. In 2016, during an international deep-sea expedition, a high-resolution camera mounted on a deep-diving submersible captured a clear series of rhythmic flashes emanating from an unknown organism drifting in open water. It was not tethered to the seafloor. It didn't resemble a jellyfish or a squid. Its shape was amorphous, almost cloak-like, its motion deliberate yet fluid. And the red light it emitted was unlike anything seen before. Not steady, not fading, flashing, pulsing, as though signaling. So why red? Red light, unlike blue or green, gets absorbed quickly in seawater. Most creatures living in the abyss are essentially blind to it, which makes it a perfect stealth signal, undetectable to predators or prey that haven't evolved the ability to perceive it. Some researchers theorize that these organisms may be using red bioluminescence to communicate covertly, To whom, or to what, is still unknown. There are a few known deep-sea species that produce red light. Certain dragonfish, for example, have evolved both red light organs and the rare ability to see that light. They use it to spot prey that cannot see them coming. But the flashes recorded in these recent events are much more intense, much more deliberate, and far more complex. Is it possible that entirely new species of deep-sea organisms are using this light to communicate in ways we don't yet understand? Could these flashes be part of a mating ritual, a navigation system, or are we witnessing something more advanced, an evolved form of underwater signaling that borders on intelligence? The pattern of the flashes, often in pulses of 3 or 4 with irregular spacing, has sparked interest from researchers studying animal communication. While no definitive code or repetition has been identified, some have noted that the intervals resemble basic signaling patterns, like those found in firefly flashes or bird calls. Are these random biological reflexes, or meaningful exchanges? And then there's the question of scale. In 2019, a deep ocean sensor near the Tonga Trench recorded a prolonged burst of red bioluminescence that illuminated an area more than 30 meters across. Instruments placed nearby detected no physical movement, no seismic activity, no mechanical cause. Just a single, powerful flash, lasting 6 seconds. Then, darkness. No creature known to science is capable of emitting such a massive burst of light from within the water column at that depth. Was it a swarm? A larger organism? Or something else entirely? Speculative theories have naturally followed. Some point to the idea of biological beacons, that these organisms may be marking territory or creating temporary luminous zones as part of a coordinated migration pattern. Others wonder whether these flashes are not intended for us at all, but for others like them. Some kind of deep-sea signaling network still forming under the radar of modern science. And there are, of course, those who reach further still. Could the deep ocean harbor forms of life that do not rely on conventional biological principles? Life that interacts with its surroundings through electromagnetic or optical signaling? Could the red flashes be evidence not just of life, but of intention? No evidence supports such claims directly, but the unanswered questions remain. We know that Earth's deep oceans are as alien to us as the surface of Mars. We've explored only a fraction of them. What we find when we look, and when we listen, often defies our expectations. So, what are these organisms that flash red in the abyss? Are they a quirk of biology? A new species adapted to silence and pressure? Or are we witnessing the edge of a larger system, a language still unrecognized, a presence still hiding in the folds of the ocean's darkest waters? For now, the flashes continue. Deep, rhythmic, unexplained, and the ocean holds its silence. As the red pulses of deep-sea light fade back into darkness, we shift our gaze westward, toward the North Atlantic, to a region where the ocean floor appears to betray geometry. Here, in the open waters southwest of Portugal, not far from the volcanic islands of the Azores, lies a puzzling formation beneath the waves, one that raises more questions than answers. Beneath the rolling currents and sunlit surface, the seabed stretches in vast, undulating plains. But in one particular area, about halfway between the Azores and the Portuguese mainland, sonar imagery and digital elevation models have revealed something different, something startling. A linear structure stretching for hundreds of kilometers appears to rise sharply from the ocean floor. It is unnaturally straight, smooth, and continuous, like a colossal wall embedded into the seabed. According to some analyses of ocean mapping data, it runs at nearly a perfect bearing, cutting across the otherwise chaotic terrain like a knife through cloth. At first glance, it could be dismissed as a data artifact. Satellite bathymetry is not perfect. Underwater mapping often introduces distortions caused by the angle of scan or gaps in data interpolation. But even when accounting for these errors, the line persists across multiple datasets, confirmed not by one, but by several independent mapping sources over the last 2 decades. So what is it? Geologists have long studied the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, which runs through this region like a spine, an underwater mountain range formed by tectonic plates slowly drifting apart. Volcanic activity is common here, and massive fissures and ridges are expected. But this formation defies the random, fractured nature of volcanic geology. It is uniform. It is level. It does not taper or fracture like a fault line. Could it be a natural formation shaped by unique pressure or temperature gradients? A coincidence of underwater erosion? Or is there something more beneath the surface? Perhaps literally? Some oceanographers propose that what we're seeing may be the remnants of an ancient escarpment, an uplifted portion of the seabed shaped by millions of years of geological compression. Others wonder whether it could be a collapsed wall of volcanic basalt, shaped into a strange illusion of uniformity by undersea currents. But then the anomalies begin to multiply. Several amateur researchers, using publicly available tools like Google Earth's bathymetry overlays, began to notice secondary lines, angular connections branching from the main structure at precise 90-degree angles. These grids appear faint, almost ghostly, but they suggest a complexity rarely found in nature. Some described it as a labyrinth, others as a foundation, ruins of something vast, now buried beneath sediment and time. And then, there's the location. The Azores lie near what was once believed to be the center of Plato's fabled Atlantis. In his dialogues Timaeus and Critias, written in the 4th century BC, Plato spoke of a great civilization beyond the Pillars of Hercules, modern-day Gibraltar, that vanished beneath the waves in a single day and night. For centuries, the idea was dismissed as allegory, a philosophical metaphor for hubris. But the proximity of this underwater wall to the Azores has reignited fringe interest in the possibility that something once stood here, something engineered. We must tread carefully. The leap from sonar anomaly to ancient civilization is a wide one. There is no direct evidence of construction, no stone blocks or carvings, no confirmed archaeological artifacts. And yet, the question lingers. If not man-made, then what kind of force shapes stone in a line that runs straight for hundreds of kilometers? Why does the seafloor, chaotic and rugged in every other direction, become symmetrical here? Is it coincidence or a clue? In 2013, a group of Portuguese divers operating near the island of Terceira in the Azores reported finding a large pyramid-like structure beneath the water, with a square base and precise alignment. Some reports linked this find to the larger linear anomaly, suggesting the two may be part of a submerged complex. While the claim has not been verified by academic institutions, it adds a whisper of pattern to what might otherwise be noise. And patterns, especially at the bottom of the sea, are difficult to ignore. Official surveys have largely remained silent on the nature of the underwater wall. The region is remote, difficult to reach, and expensive to explore. Deep-sea expeditions require significant resources, and without a clear scientific incentive, they rarely prioritize anomalies that lack biological or mineral interest. Still, the wall remains, silent, submerged, and unexplained. Could it be a natural boundary we've misread as architectural? A visual illusion caused by data processing? Or does it mark the last trace of something that once stood above the waves, a memory written into the ocean's floor? We may never know. The Atlantic keeps its secrets well. But perhaps, one day, the currents will shift, a deeper expedition will pass this way, and what now appears as a faint line beneath digital water might rise into view as something far more tangible. Until then, the wall near the Azores stands in silence, a riddle carved into stone beneath the sea, waiting to be read. What lies beneath it? And why has it endured, unseen and unanswered for so long? From the vast Atlantic seafloor and the geometric enigmas near the Azores, we shift now to an inland body of water that seems, at first glance, far removed from the ancient oceanic depths. But beneath the windswept surface of Lake Ontario, one of North America's Great Lakes, lies a mystery every bit as strange, as unexplained, and as persistent. The lake stretches over 7,300 square miles, its waters cold and often mist-covered, especially in the early morning. To those who live along its shores, from the Canadian city of Toronto to the American port town of Oswego, Lake Ontario is familiar, almost domestic. A place for fishing, for ferries, for summer cabins. But appearances deceive. Beneath its depths are areas that have baffled divers, scientists, and even military personnel for decades. They are known simply as the mystery spots. It began, as many mysteries do, with whispers. Sailors and fishermen spoke of sudden malfunctions in equipment, compasses that spun erratically, GPS devices that went blank, even depth finders that reported impossible readings. Some divers reported feelings of extreme disorientation, vertigo, or a strange sense of being watched, though no marine life appeared nearby. Others described hearing unexplained mechanical hums or pulses underwater, reverberating as if from a source embedded deep in the lakebed. The anomalies appear most often along a stretch of the lake's eastern basin. Locals eventually gave the area an informal name, the Lake Ontario Triangle. While far less famous than its Bermuda counterpart, this triangle has been linked to a curious concentration of missing aircraft and boats dating back to World War II. One of the earliest official mentions came in 1950, when a Royal Canadian Air Force training flight vanished without a trace over the lake. Wreckage was never found. No distress call was ever transmitted. Similar disappearances followed, sparking speculation that something, natural or otherwise, was interfering with navigational instruments. But the mystery deepened in the early 2000s, when sonar scans of the lakebed revealed strange, highly reflective spots, scattered in symmetrical patterns. These sonar hotspots were not aligned with known geological formations, and some appeared to pulse with slight variations in temperature, despite being located hundreds of feet underwater in cold, stable zones. Scientists began to take interest. One theory suggested that magnetic anomalies in the Earth's crust beneath the lake might be causing temporary disruptions in local electromagnetic fields. The region does sit atop the Grenville Geological Province, a billion-year-old shield of ancient rock known for its complexity. Could cracks in the crust be releasing pockets of natural gas or creating microtectonic activity that interferes with instruments? Other explanations leaned toward environmental factors, underwater methane vents, previously unknown thermal springs, or even remnants of glacial activity from the last ice age. After all, Lake Ontario was carved by titanic glacial forces. Could something ancient and still active beneath the surface be reshaping the magnetic footprint of the region? But then came the more curious reports. Several independent diving teams, some recreational, others contracted for lakebed mapping, claimed to have seen unusual formations on the bottom, rectilinear shapes, patterns resembling steps or platforms. Not vast structures, but unnatural enough to stand out. One diver, who preferred to remain anonymous, described a submerged grid formation that spanned nearly the length of a football field, smooth, angular, and seemingly out of place among the natural sediment. Still, no official survey has publicly confirmed these findings. Images are scarce. Some suggest these accounts may stem from optical illusions caused by light refraction at depth, or the tendency of the human brain to find patterns where none exist, a phenomenon known as pareidolia. But the intrigue doesn't end there. In 2005, an underwater archaeological team stumbled upon what appeared to be a circle of stones on the lake bed, now partially buried. The arrangement, at first dismissed as a natural rockfall, was re-examined due to one peculiar detail. One of the stones bore what looked like a carved image, an abstract figure resembling a deer or elk. Carbon dating wasn't possible due to the location and the nature of the material, but comparisons were drawn to similar petroglyphs found in southern Ontario, known to date back as far as 4,000 years. If this underwater carving is authentic, it raises further questions. Was this part of a ritual site? Was the area once dry land, later submerged by rising waters? And who were the people who left it behind? Could the so-called mystery spots be linked to ancient human activity, a civilization predating written history in the region? Or are they the result of entirely natural phenomena we have yet to fully understand? For now, the answers remain submerged. There is no single explanation that accounts for all the anomalies, the electromagnetic disruptions, the strange underwater sounds, the odd sonar reflections, the whispered stories of vanishing aircraft. Some researchers continue to call for a systematic, high-resolution scan of the lake bed using modern deep imaging technology. Others urge caution, pointing to the need for more empirical data and less speculation. Still, the mystery spots endure. Mapped, noted, and occasionally visited, but never fully explained. They remain quiet, waiting below the waves, below the boats and ferries and early morning mists. And so we ask, are these magnetic anomalies simply quirks of geology, or might they point to something older, stranger, perhaps even forgotten, lurking beneath the cold gray waters of Lake Ontario? The lake keeps its secrets well, and perhaps that's part of its mystery. From the inland secrets of Lake Ontario, we now turn our gaze eastward, across the Atlantic, to the cold gray waters of Northern Europe. The North Sea, a body of water steeped in history, marked by centuries of trade, exploration, and war. But beneath its stormy waves and shifting tides lies a lesser-known chapter in the story of World War I, one that continues to confuse and haunt those who dare to explore its depths. The North Sea stretches between Great Britain and mainland Europe, bordered by Norway to the northeast and the low-lying coastlines of Belgium and the Netherlands to the south. It is a sea often cloaked in fog, its waves whipped by icy winds, and its floor lined with silt, sand, and centuries of wreckage. Fishermen here speak of metal rising from the sea floor, rusted hulls, twisted steel, and sometimes oddly intact compartments filled with forgotten objects. Among these are the remnants of a silent war. During the First World War, Germany launched one of the most ambitious submarine campaigns in maritime history. The U-boat, Unterseeboot, became a symbol of stealth and destruction, silent, unseen, and lethal. Their mission: sever Allied supply lines, sink cargo ships, and weaken the British war effort. In response, the British Royal Navy and its allies developed elaborate countermeasures, convoys, mines, and decoy vessels. But even with these efforts, the sea became a graveyard. It is believed that hundreds of submarines now lie at the bottom of the North Sea. Some were destroyed in battle, others simply vanished, never returning to port, no final transmission, no confirmed enemy engagement. And it is this silence, this absence of closure, that has fueled a strange sense of mystery around many of these sunken convoys. Among the most perplexing is the case of the so-called Lost Flotilla. According to naval logs, in late 1917, a small convoy of German U-boats departed from the port of Wilhelmshaven. Their destination, the waters near the English coast. Their task, intercept and disrupt key supply routes between the British Isles and France. The submarines were state-of-the-art for their time, fitted with torpedoes, radio equipment, and advanced depth-testing instruments. But within days of departure, they vanished. No distress signals, no sightings, no wreckage found. For decades, their fate remained unknown, until fragments began appearing in the early 2000s, stumbled upon by oil and gas survey teams mapping the seafloor for offshore drilling. Strange, long structures, partially buried, broken in places but still unmistakably submarine-like in shape. What raised eyebrows wasn't just their location, but the condition they were in. Some of the hulls showed no signs of external damage, no evidence of torpedo hits, no scorched metal from depth charges. Instead, they appeared to have settled gently, almost peacefully, onto the seabed. In one case, a vessel was found perfectly upright, its conning tower still intact, with what appeared to be sealed compartments inside. No remains were ever recovered. This puzzled naval historians. Could an entire convoy of submarines have sunk without conflict? If so, how? Was there a flaw in their design? A critical pressure failure that occurred simultaneously? Or were they the victims of a silent underwater minefield never properly charted? British naval archives remain incomplete for this period. Some believe the documents were never created. Others suggest they were deliberately redacted. But the deeper you dive, the stranger the theories become. Some maritime researchers have proposed environmental anomalies. Methane seeps, large underwater gas pockets, can destabilize a ship's buoyancy and cause sudden descent. Others suggest intense geomagnetic disturbances could have interfered with the early guidance systems of the U-boats, pulling them off course, even scrambling their ability to communicate. But there are fragments of testimony that cloud the waters further. In 1933, a trawler captain operating near the Dogger Bank reported seeing what he described as metal whales, 3 long rusted forms partially protruding from the sediment in near-perfect alignment. The report was dismissed at the time, but modern sonar confirms that several U-boat wrecks rest in precisely that area, arranged not randomly, but in a curving formation, almost as if following one another in a line before dropping in unison to the depths. Was this the final resting path of the lost flotilla? Or something stranger? There are those who speculate, quietly, cautiously, about undisclosed technologies. The North Sea during WWI was also a testing ground. Experimental mines, underwater listening devices, acoustic jammers. Could one of these have malfunctioned or triggered a cascading failure? Others go even further. The proximity of some wrecks to submerged geological ridges, areas that radiate faint, unexplained magnetic signals, has led to whispers of a natural phenomenon not yet understood. A place where instruments fail, where iron is drawn down, where time may have seemed to pause. Far-fetched, perhaps. But for the divers who've approached these wrecks, the feeling is hard to dismiss. A stillness. A kind of pressure in the water that makes communication difficult and leaves some with headaches or nausea upon resurfacing. The U-boats themselves offer no answers. They lie silent in their rusting tombs, their secrets sealed within. No crew, no cargo. Just the cold iron of a war long past, resting in unnatural formation across the seafloor. Why were these submarines never found until recently? Why do some show no signs of conflict or damage? And why, despite modern exploration, does their story remain fragmented, incomplete, like pieces of a puzzle never meant to be solved? The North Sea remains an active waterway, its surface bustling with ships and trade. But beneath it lies a battlefield erased not by time, but by the silence of the deep. Perhaps it is there, in that silence, that the truth waits, still drifting among the wreckage, unwilling to rise. And so we ask, what truly happened to the lost flotilla of World War I? And how many more of their kind lie forgotten in the cold, shifting sands of the North Sea? From the forgotten wreckage of the North Sea, we drift southward into warmer but equally cryptic waters. The Eastern Mediterranean, a region where ancient history meets modern conflict, and where the sea has hidden more than it has revealed. Here, in the vast blue stretch between Crete and Israel, lies one of the most unsettling submarine disappearances of the 20th century. The story of the INS Dakar. The sea between Greece and the Levant is deceptively calm. Its surface is often mirror-like, reflecting a sun-drenched sky scattered with cargo ships and naval patrols. But beneath this tranquil facade lies a deep, uneven terrain, trenches, undersea cliffs, and volcanic scars that stretch for miles. It was here, in January 1968, that the Dakar, a submarine belonging to the Israeli Navy, vanished without warning, without distress signals, and without a trace. The Dakar began its journey in the port of Portsmouth, England. Originally a British T-class submarine commissioned during World War II, it had recently been refurbished and transferred to Israel as part of a military modernization effort. She was fully operational, her systems tested, her crew seasoned. On January 9, 1968, the Dakar departed, charting a course through the Strait of Gibraltar, across the Mediterranean, and toward her final destination, Haifa. For most of the journey, all was routine. The submarine made regular position reports, noting her speed, depth, and expected arrival time. She had already passed the halfway point, nearing Crete, when communications suddenly ceased. On January 24th, the last signal was received, cryptic, brief, and oddly informal. It gave no hint of mechanical issues or external threat. It was the kind of message one might expect on a routine patrol, not moments before disappearance. And then, silence. No distress call, no sonar ping, no radar detection from nearby ships. The Dakar had simply vanished. Initial suspicions ranged from technical failure to hostile action. Israel launched a massive search operation, joined by American and British forces, scouring the Mediterranean with sonar, aircraft, and divers. For months, nothing surfaced. Not a single oil slick. Not a floating life vest. Not even a ripple out of place. Conspiracy theories were inevitable. Was the Dakar intercepted by a foreign power? Had it struck a classified NATO minefield? Or did something far stranger occur beneath the waves? Some believed the submarine had been involved in a secret mission, perhaps covert surveillance or arms transport, and that its loss was part of a larger geopolitical cover-up. Others speculated that an internal explosion, possibly from a hydrogen buildup in the battery compartment, had destroyed the vessel instantly, preventing any transmission or escape. But if so, why wasn't the wreck found? It would take more than 30 years to answer that question. In 1999, a joint American-Israeli search team finally located the wreck, resting 3,000 meters deep, nearly 300 miles off the coast of Haifa. The discovery was startling, not only because of the depth and distance from the intended route, but because of the condition of the wreckage. The Dakar was largely intact. The bow was crushed, possibly from impact with the seabed, but the rest of the submarine appeared to have suffered no combat damage. There were no signs of fire, no torpedo holes, no hull breach consistent with enemy action. The evidence seemed to suggest a rapid, catastrophic failure, but one that remains unexplained to this day. Why did the Dakar veer off course so drastically? Why was its final transmission so uncharacteristically vague? And why did it take 3 decades, and advanced deep-sea sonar technology to finally uncover its resting place. Some experts propose a navigational error, worsened by outdated instrumentation. Others point to the psychological pressure of prolonged underwater missions, suggesting that a momentary lapse in judgment or mechanical oversight could have triggered disaster. But even these ideas fail to satisfy. Strangely, the Dakar isn't alone. 1968 was a particularly haunting year for submariners. Within the same span of months, the American USS Scorpion, the French Minerve, and the Soviet K-129 also vanished under mysterious circumstances. 4 submarines, 4 nations, 4 tragedies, none with complete explanations. It was as if something unseen swept through the oceans that year, leaving only questions in its wake. And so the Mediterranean's mystery deepens. Even with the discovery of the Dakar's wreck, many details remain out of reach. The Israeli government has declassified only parts of its investigation. Some families of the lost crew still believe the full truth has yet to surface. The recovered fragments offer little closure, just rusted steel, silent chambers, and long-faded memories. What remains, then, is a story suspended between fact and conjecture. A modern vessel, lost in ancient waters. A message sent, a silence received, and a lingering sense that the sea, once again, has chosen to keep it secret. What forces conspired in those final hours of the INS Dakar? Was it merely coincidence, mechanical failure, or something else, something buried deep within the Mediterranean's timeless depths? Perhaps the real mystery is not only what happened to the submarine, but what it was doing when it disappeared. And perhaps, even now, the eastern seabed holds more than wreckage. It may hold answers waiting patiently in the cold dark, untouched for decades, shielded by silence. And we are left to wonder, how many of the ocean's truths are still hidden, just beyond reach, waiting to be found, or never meant to be? From the eastern Mediterranean, where the cold silence of a sunken submarine still echoes unanswered, we now shift our gaze eastward, toward the Arabian Sea, where warmth meets vastness, and the water itself has, at times, appeared to shimmer with an unearthly light. It begins as a faint glow on the horizon, barely perceptible to the naked eye. As the hours pass, the sea transforms. A sweeping, radiant hue, blue, green, sometimes even ghostly white, spreads across the surface, stretching for miles. Mariners speak of waters that glow beneath their ships as though lit from below, like a lantern held beneath glass. Satellite images, when available, reveal these luminescent patches from space, glowing fingerprints upon the dark expanse of the Indian Ocean. This is not legend. The phenomenon has been documented. In January 2010, U.S. military satellites recorded a glowing mass in the Arabian Sea, nearly the size of Connecticut. For 3 consecutive nights, the water pulsed with a visible light, without a storm, without fire, and without warning. Mariners, fishermen, and researchers alike were left to ask, what exactly is glowing in these deep waters, and why? The prevailing explanation, offered by oceanographers, centers on a rare biological occurrence known as milky seas. Unlike the short-lived sparkles of bioluminescent plankton stirred by waves or the motion of boats, milky seas are persistent, spreading glows that can last for hours or even days. They are believed to be caused by Vibrio harveyi, a species of bioluminescent bacteria that sometimes cluster in such massive concentrations that they blanket the surface in an unbroken glow. But even this explanation is incomplete. Scientists still do not understand what triggers these rare bacterial blooms on such a colossal scale. Out of millions of oceanic observations, only a few dozen reliable reports of milky seas exist. The Arabian Sea, it seems, is one of the few regions on Earth where they appear most frequently, yet their cause remains elusive. What conditions cause the sudden alignment of temperature, salinity, and organic matter necessary to ignite such radiant underwater events? Why here, in these waters bordering Oman, Pakistan, and the western coast of India? Why not in more heavily studied regions of the world's oceans? In 2005, a paper published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences confirmed the satellite detection of a massive glow in the Arabian Sea. It lasted over 3 nights and covered an area of more than 15,000 square kilometers. The researchers identified it as one of the largest bioluminescent events ever recorded. And yet, no samples were collected, no vessels were nearby, and no confirmation of its microbial source was obtained. The data existed, but the substance behind the glow remained out of reach. Some theories suggest the Arabian Sea may harbor underwater microbial ecosystems unlike anywhere else in the world, communities that thrive in oxygen-depleted layers of water known as oxygen minimum zones, which are unusually thick in this part of the ocean. These vast layers, devoid of typical marine life, could be breeding grounds for unique microbial colonies capable of collective bioluminescence. But this too remains speculative. Others look to history, and to the accounts of sailors stretching back centuries, who described seas that glowed like fields of snow or moonlit prairies. Were these exaggerated tales filtered through the awe of unfamiliar waters? Or were they early witness reports of a natural phenomenon still beyond our full comprehension? There are still more fringe theories, that deep below these glowing patches, there might be geothermal vents releasing unknown chemical compounds, or even that tectonic friction in the seabed could cause temporary luminescent reactions, akin to underwater lightning, leaving no trace but light. Some researchers have pointed out the curious alignment between Milky Sea occurrences and seismic zones, though no direct connection has been proven. And then, there are the darker speculations, the ones found in the margins of official reports and whispered through coastal communities. Stories of unidentified underwater craft, of vessels that vanish beneath glowing tides, of electromagnetic anomalies interfering with navigation systems when the sea begins to shine. But these are only stories. The ocean gives no answers, only glimpses. In recent years, advances in satellite imaging and drone surveillance have improved our chances of detecting these events. And yet, when they do occur, they vanish as swiftly as they appear. Often by the time a ship can be dispatched to investigate, the glow has already dissipated. Like a message scrawled in water, visible just long enough to unsettle, never long enough to study. The Arabian Sea remains one of the most strategically monitored regions in the world, flanked by major shipping lanes, naval patrols, and surveillance satellites. And yet, in this intersection of commerce and security, nature still holds the upper hand. A glowing sea that defies full understanding. A pulse of light in the darkness, pointing not to an answer, but to the depth of our own ignorance. Is this merely a microbial anomaly, misunderstood by science but well within its future grasp? Or is it a sign of something deeper, something waiting in the silence beneath the surface? For now, the answers remain submerged. And as the glow returns, rare, unpredictable, almost supernatural, we're left with a simple, haunting question. What else, in this living ocean, burns with light we have yet to name? From the glowing waters of the Arabian Sea, we now turn to a much colder, quieter world, thousands of miles away. A world shaped by ice, time, and memory. Beneath the still surface of Lake Huron, one of North America's great inland seas, lies something ancient, something forgotten, and something carved in stone. The lake itself is vast and powerful. Covering over 23,000 square miles, it stretches between the shores of Michigan and Ontario, its surface calm and reflective, its depths cold and dark. For centuries, indigenous communities lived along its shores, telling stories passed down through generations of great animals, lost paths, and sacred places now hidden beneath the waves. In 2007, a team of researchers from the University of Michigan, scanning the lake floor with sonar as part of an unrelated geological survey, made a stunning discovery. Nearly 120 feet below the surface, they identified a series of stones aligned in a linear formation, stretching hundreds of feet across the submerged Alpina Amberley Ridge. But this was not a random collection of natural debris. One of the stones appeared to be marked, etched with unmistakable purpose. Closer inspection, using divers and remotely operated cameras, revealed a large flat stone, tilted slightly, and engraved with what some believe to be the outline of a mastodon. The animal, an extinct elephant-like creature, roamed North America until roughly 10,000 years ago. If authentic, the carving would place the structure in a time before recorded history, long before Lake Huron had even filled with water. Geologists believe that during the last ice age, this ridge would have been a land bridge, a dry, elevated corridor stretching across what is now the lake floor. Early Paleo-Indian hunters could have followed this path, tracking herds of caribou or mastodons. Perhaps they paused here, marked this place, left behind a message that only stone could preserve. But is it a carving at all? Some scientists urge caution. The mastodon shape could be the result of natural weathering or fracturing, a pareidolik illusion, a trick of the brain, seeing familiar patterns where none exist. After all, rock doesn't need an artist to crack in ways that resemble an eye, or a tusk, or a curved trunk. And yet, the stone alignment suggests something more than coincidence. Archaeologists familiar with Paleo-Indian cultures argue that the ridge may have functioned as a drive line, similar to those used by ancient hunters to funnel game toward a kill zone. The placement of large boulders, combined with their spacing, fits known hunting strategies used by early peoples across the Northern Hemisphere. Still, the carved stone remains a mystery. Could a prehistoric civilization have created a form of symbolic art that predates Stonehenge by thousands of years, and then had that artwork swallowed by a rising lake as the glaciers retreated? Mainstream theories suggest the structure, if human-made, could be one of the oldest known archaeological sites in North America. But such a conclusion comes with complications. For one, accessing the site is incredibly difficult. At over 100 feet deep, in water that is often freezing and murky, prolonged human study is limited. The region's geology adds further complexity. Rocks fracture, shift, and sink over millennia. What appears to be deliberate may simply be the result of ice, pressure, and time. Some researchers have proposed returning with advanced underwater imaging tools, perhaps even using 3D laser scans or AI-driven shape analysis to determine whether the mastodon engraving is artificial or geological. Others call for a core sample of the stone itself to determine its age, weathering pattern, and possible pigment residues. But as of now, the carving has not been definitively dated. Its message, if it is one, remains unread. And of course, the more speculative theories have begun to emerge. Could the stone alignments be part of a larger yet undiscovered ceremonial site? Could ancient peoples have marked migratory paths not just with boulders, but with symbols, proto-writing systems lost to time? Some point to similar underwater anomalies in Lake Michigan, where alleged stone circles and geometric formations have also been discovered, often dismissed and sometimes forgotten. There are even more fringe suggestions. Claims that the lake holds ruins of a civilization unknown to modern archaeology, a North American Atlantis submerged at the close of the last ice age. But these claims, though dramatic, remain unproven. For every sonar scan, there is ambiguity. For every photograph, a dozen interpretations. The truth, perhaps, lies somewhere in between. What we know is this. Around 9,000 to 10,000 years ago, humans hunted across the land bridge where Lake Huron now lies. The Earth was warming, the glaciers retreating, and the waters rising. Any marker, message, or monument left behind would have been swallowed, sealed, and preserved in cold silence. So we are left with questions. Did someone, in a time before writing, carve a mastodon into stone as a memory of the hunt? A tribute? A sacred symbol? Or are we projecting meaning into the patterns of stone, hoping for connection in the absence of proof? As the cold water laps quietly above the site, undisturbed and nearly forgotten, the mystery remains. What else lies beneath the Great Lakes, waiting in the dark, beneath centuries of sediment, etched in stone and silence, still hidden from view? As the freshwater mysteries of Lake Huron sink behind us, we now sail to warmer waters toward the western coast of India, where the Arabian Sea folds into the land through a shallow, silt-laden inlet, the Gulf of Cambay. Here, the sea meets the mouths of the Narmada and Tapti rivers. The tides are strong, the currents unpredictable, and the waters famously opaque with sediment. It is not a place that easily yields its secrets. And yet, beneath these turbulent, murky depths, sonar has detected what appear to be ancient structures, linear forms, right-angled arrangements, and stone patterns that have no immediate geological explanation. What makes this mystery even more compelling is that these features are not the often debated circular ruins commonly linked with speculative claims of the Dwarka-like city. These are different, straighter, flatter, and scattered in unexpected places. Structures that resemble causeways, long walls, and even what look like stair-like formations carved into bedrock. But the question that haunts the seabed of the Gulf of Cambay is as vast as the sediment it hides. Who could have built these features, and when? The initial discovery came in the early 2000s during a routine marine pollution survey by the National Institute of Ocean Technology. The team, using side-scan sonar, picked up symmetrical, grid-like patterns spread across several square kilometers near the town of Mahuva. Unlike natural rock formations, these shapes had sharp corners, parallel lines, and intersecting angles. Some appeared aligned to true north, suggesting intentionality, planning, and possibly even a forgotten sense of orientation. Later scans revealed that some of these features were buried under layers of sand and silt up to 20 feet thick. Divers attempting to reach them faced strong undercurrents and nearly zero visibility, limiting their ability to confirm the sonar findings with physical evidence. A few small artifacts, fragments of pottery, tools, and pieces of stone, were retrieved, but without firm stratigraphic context, their age and origin remain uncertain. Still, the spatial layout of the structures was provocative. Rectangular outlines suggested rooms. Narrow corridors extended in straight lines before vanishing beneath denser sediment layers. Some formations appeared as elongated platforms that dropped suddenly, as if steps had been carved into stone. Others curved gently and ran parallel to the shifting shoreline, almost like seawalls or embankments from another time. Conventional geological explanations suggest these could be the result of ancient tectonic activity or erosional processes. The western coast of India has experienced numerous seismic events throughout its history. Could an uplift or fracture have coincidentally created these seemingly organized shapes? Perhaps, but critics of this view point to the degree of symmetry, the repeating measurements, and the contextual presence of man-made-looking artifacts as signs of something more deliberate. Then there is the matter of age. Radiocarbon dating on some organic material found in nearby silt layers suggested dates as far back as 7500 BC. That would place these features thousands of years before the rise of the Indus Valley civilization. At the time, most of the world's population was still living in small nomadic communities. Could a complex settlement have existed here so early, only to be submerged by rising sea levels as the Ice Age came to an end? The mainstream archaeological community remains cautious. Some experts argue that the sonar images are open to interpretation, and without direct excavation or uncontaminated dating samples, it's premature to claim the presence of an advanced prehistoric culture. The Gulf of Cambay is a difficult place to study. The strong tides, shifting sands, and lack of visibility mean that traditional underwater archaeology is nearly impossible without extensive and expensive efforts. Nonetheless, the anomalies remain. The patterns are there. The alignments persist across multiple scans, and perhaps most intriguingly, they do not resemble any known seabed formations from other parts of the world, not in shape, not in structure, and not in distribution. Some appear to connect to what would have been dry land over 9,000 years ago, tracing paths now lost beneath the sea. Could we be looking at the eroded skeleton of an ancient port, a ceremonial complex swallowed by the waves? Or something else entirely, an unfinished puzzle scattered beneath the sediment, its pieces half buried, half erased by time? The idea of lost civilizations beneath the sea is often treated with skepticism, but Earth's history tells us otherwise. We know that during the end of the last ice age, vast stretches of coastlines were submerged as glaciers melted and sea levels rose rapidly. Doggerland in the North Sea, the Bering Land Bridge, submerged temples in the Aegean. Why not here? And so the Gulf of Cambay sits in quiet defiance, its secrets smothered by silt, its anomalies resistant to easy interpretation. The official stance is one of caution. Possible man-made features, pending further study. But to those who peer into the sonar images, who trace the right angles and walk the invisible corridors in their minds, something about it feels unfinished. Are we simply misreading nature's chaotic patterns as design? Or are these the fading blueprints of a forgotten world, one that predated history, language, and perhaps even memory? As the waters churn above and the mud refuses to part, the Gulf keeps its answers sealed. But somewhere below, the stones remain, silent, aligned, and waiting for us to ask the right question. Drifting west from the sediment-shrouded structures of the Gulf of Cambay, we arrive in warmer waters once again, this time in the Caribbean. A few nautical miles off the southern coast of Cuba, beneath the crystalline blue of the Caribbean Sea, lies a scene that raises more questions than answers. An arrangement of aircraft wreckage clustered together in an almost unnatural silence. Locals call it El Cementerio de Aviones, the airplane graveyard. But what lies beneath the waves is more than just twisted aluminum and broken fuselage. It's a riddle in steel and salt, because the aircraft, dozens of them, sit too close together, too well preserved, too coordinated in their final resting place. This is not a simple scattering of planes downed in war or lost in storms. It's something stranger. Sonar scans first picked up the anomaly in the late 1990s during an oceanographic survey. The images showed multiple aircraft-shaped objects sitting upright on the seafloor, clustered within a confined area roughly 500 meters across. Divers sent to investigate returned with eerie accounts: rows of aircraft, wings intact, cockpits closed. No sign of ejection, no signs of fire. Just silence. The location is not near any known airbase, and no historical records mention a battle or disaster that could account for so many planes lost in one place. Some of the aircraft resemble American fighter jets from the Cold War era. Others seem older, possibly World War II vintage. Yet the markings on many have eroded beyond recognition, as though time itself has conspired to erase their stories. So how did they get here? One theory suggests that these are simply derelict aircraft, dumped into the sea as part of a decommissioning effort. It's not unheard of. Retired planes have been sunk intentionally to create artificial reefs. But that explanation falters under scrutiny. The planes here were not stripped of hazardous materials. No evidence of reef preparation exists. And crucially, no official record of any Cuban or American military dumping operation in this area has ever been produced. Another theory links the site to covert Cold War operations. During the height of U.S.-Cuba tensions, the waters around the island were a theater of espionage, surveillance, and aerial reconnaissance. Could these aircraft have been part of a secretive mission gone wrong, intercepted, silenced, and sunk? If so, why were they never reported missing? And why, decades later, do so few people even know they're there? Then there's the question of the site's peculiar symmetry. Some divers have noted that the planes appear almost parked, as if intentionally arranged rather than scattered by crash trajectories. Their proximity to one another raises eyebrows. Could strong underwater currents have pushed them together? Or was this arrangement somehow deliberate? What's more, some reports, though unofficial and difficult to verify, speak of aircraft types not known to operate in the region. Rare jet models, even experimental designs. Are these misidentifications, or hints at something deliberately obscured from public knowledge? Perhaps most curiously, the site has been quietly ignored. Despite its discovery over 2 decades ago, there's been no large-scale investigation, no major international dive effort, no documentation released to clarify the anomaly. Some believe this silence is telling, that someone knows more than they're willing to share. Of course, fringe theorists have offered more speculative ideas. Some suggest the site is evidence of reverse engineering programs, planes secretly replicated or studied before being dumped to eliminate evidence. Others claim it's a hoax, a staged site meant to distract or mislead. A few go even further, connecting it to stories of unidentified flying objects allegedly tracked over the Caribbean in the 1960s and 70s, suggesting these aren't conventional aircraft at all. But these claims, like the graveyard itself, remain underwater, unconfirmed, unchallenged, and largely untouched. Could a tectonic event have relocated a portion of land, bringing with it the wreckage of a forgotten airfield? Could storms or hurricanes have dislodged aircraft from ship decks and pulled them down together? Possible, but unproven. What we're left with is a haunting tableau, a fleet of planes resting quietly beneath the waves, their histories unrecorded, their presence unexplained. There is no smoke, no flames, no visible trauma on most of the wrecks. It's as if these machines simply fell asleep beneath the sea. Who were the pilots? Were there any? Were these aircraft ever flown in combat, or were they delivered here for another purpose entirely? Is the graveyard a byproduct of political maneuvering, forgotten by history but etched into the seabed? Or does it hint at a story too complex or too inconvenient to be revealed? In the deep silence of the Caribbean, time moves differently. Corrosion is slow, memory even slower. The graveyard rests, undisturbed, unguarded, unclaimed. What secrets lie sealed inside those cockpits? Who flew these machines? And why were they left in this watery limbo? As with so many underwater mysteries, the deeper we look, the less certain we become. And so we move on, but the image lingers. Rows of silent aircraft, wings outstretched, staring blankly into the abyss. Not quite forgotten, not yet explained. Perhaps the sea remembers what we have chosen to forget. Or perhaps it is still hiding the truth, waiting, as always, just out of reach.